No. This is the policy. This is for advisory.
Could everyone take their seats, please? I'm going to call this meeting to order.
No. 11. Thursday.
Thank you. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our statement of values? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength and courage and the will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interest of our people, neighbors, and our country. All this we ask so that we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Thank you. Please be seated. A roll call, City Clerk.
Councilmember Mahan. Councilmember O'Neill.
Present.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Watanabe.
Here.
Councilmember Kolstad.
Here.
And Mayor Gilmore.
Here.
And may I read the AB 23 announcement, please?
Yes, please.
Members of the Santa Clara Stadium Authority, Sports and Open Space Authority, and Housing Authority are entitled to receive $30 for each attended meeting. Statement of behavioral standards is as follows. The City of Santa Clara has adopted a code of ethics and values and behavioral standards for public meetings to promote and maintain the highest levels of conduct. This includes mutual respect, robust discussion, and allowing city business to be done in an efficient and consistent manner. Please note that as the presiding officer, the mayor's direction in matters of process and decorum should be followed, and that use of the gavel indicates all conversations must conclude and everyone in attendance should come to order and attention. Welcome, and thank you for your participation.
Thank you. So next we have reports of actions taken in closed session. City Attorney.
Good evening, Mayor Gilmore, members of the City Council. My name is Alexander Abbey. I'm the Assistant City Attorney sitting in for Mr. Doyle tonight. Earlier this evening, the City Council conducted a closed session. There was no reportable action taken at that closed session.
Thank you very much. Next, we have continuances and exceptions. I know, City Manager, you have at least one.
I'd like to have item 2S dropped, please.
That's 2S on this consent calendar, and that item is called that is action on the electric service agreement with Equinox Corporation. So that, is there a motion to pull that from the consent calendar and drop it for now?
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Any member of the public? Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. I had two items, proclamations under reports. I'm going to bring them up to the special order of business since there were not representatives here to accept them, but I will talk about them if that's by consensus of the council, if that's okay. Thank you. Okay, special order of business. Our first special order of business is recognition of community and corporate partners of the Santa Clara City Library Foundation and Friends. So I'd like to invite our City Librarian to come forward, Hillary Keith, for the presentation. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, City Manager. It's really an honor and a pleasure to recognize our donors tonight and thank them for their support of the library. These generous donations to the Santa Clara City Library Foundation and Friends enable the library to be nimble, relevant, and innovative so we can better meet the ever-changing needs of our communities and rise to the challenge of our future. From the Mission Library renovation to the Bookmobile, STEM Central to Comic-Con, which, by the way, is this Saturday, health and wellness materials and programs, literacy programs, and of course, the beloved summer reading program. Our donors give us the opportunity to make an even bigger impact on our city. Now, I'd like to introduce the Vice President of the Foundation and Friends, Herbert Bhatia.
Welcome.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Good evening. My name is Herbir Bhatia, and on behalf of the Library Foundation and Friends, I'm here to recognize the amazing folks that make our mission possible. Library to us is more than books, but rather a space to learn, grow, experience, and celebrate the world and the community we live in. And through the Library Foundation, we have the pride in supporting the amazing branches like the North Side, the Mission, and the Central, not only by bringing great enhancements and making Northside happen, but also bringing great programming that benefits the community. And most recently was our Mission Library. And to do that, we have two amazing staff members that make it so possible. I'd like to recognize, excuse me, I'd like to recognize our staff members, Tracy and Kate. Please give them a round of applause. I'm sorry, I thought I was about to sneeze. And along with that are great partners that make that mission of building community and lifelong learning possible. Many of you have seen and heard of them on emails, maybe passing by, but I don't think anybody's really had a chance for a long time to see all of them here together tonight. So with great pleasure, I would like to invite our wonderful partners up, starting with the Irvine Company, Mandy Aben, Director of Community Relations, Carlene Matchniff, Vice President of Entitlements and Public Affairs, for your support of literacy and lifelong learning. Council, please. Come on. In front of me. I want you to come up here. Are you taking a picture? Yes, please come on over. Logistics.
Line up.
Paparazzi.
Hope I don't try to not sneeze again. Okay, the next person I'd like to bring up, many of you have seen, he has been an annual sponsor for many programs. Our Key Point Credit Union is Duran Neumann, Vice President of Sales and Development, for your ongoing support of the summer reading program.
Hey, John.
Kind of interesting doing this back and forth business. Next, I'd like to bring up Kaiser Permanente, Chris Boyd, SVP of the area manager. And for that, Kaiser has been supporting for actually many years, specifically around health and wellness collection and programs. Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to bring up San Francisco 49ers, Justin Prettyman, Executive Director, SF 49ers Foundation. If council won't mind, I'm going to go a little sideways.
No, you're
with no
fine.
disrespect.
Yeah.
Next, I'd like to invite from AMD, Teresa Chavez, Employee and Executive Communications, for your support of STEM learning, summer reading, and Comic-Con.
Okay.
Next, I'd like to invite from Rotary Club of Santa Clara, Colleen Knoll, the president-elect. The list goes on. Enterprise Holdings. Elliot, the marketing manager, for your support of summer reading. Is Elliot here today? Okay. From Mission City Community Fund, Debbie Davis.
Debbie.
Get dizzy doing this circular thing. Okay. Next, I'd like to invite from related companies, Steve Eimer, Vice President, for your support of literacy and lifelong learning. After that, we have Summerhill Homes, and I'm not sure if they're still here. Anyone
Joe
here
Head
from
was
Summerhill Homes? Okay, Joe had to leave. Okay. Next, we have Vinicius Brasil, the Santa Clara real estate guy. Vinicius Brasil, realtor. Well, if you're watching online, thank you so much. We have a plaque for you. Next is Mailing from Serena Realty. She is not here today. Again, if she's watching online, thank you so much. Next, we have Westfield Valley Fair, Scott Valley, Vice President of Development.
Scott.
Okay, we're definitely going to make you. Next, we have the Santa Clara Women's Club. And from the Santa Clara Women's Club, we have Freeman, Secretary, and Mary Hennell, Historian. Next on the list is Santa Clara Historical Society and Historic Home Tour, Bob Bird, President. And I'm going to also announce that Bob Bird, President, is also here to represent Harris Last House. Thank you so much, Bob. Twice.
Hey, Bob.
Next on the list is Old Cod Residents Association, Adam Thompson, Judy Tucker, Priscilla Haynes, and Kathy Betts. Next on the list is Santa Clara Methodist Retirement Fund. And I believe we have Kathy Betts here from the fund, and Priscilla Haynes. You can see who's really telling me what to say, you know. I'm just a talking piece.
Stay there, Tracy.
And finally, the last on our list for today is KLA Tencor, Cindy Campbell, Foundation Director. And now finally, I would really appreciate if council could join us for a group photo.
Oh, how about they all come up here?
Okay.
Is that easier? So we can, and we'll stand behind because there's
Okay,
so many.
great idea.
Thanks. Here, we can move the chair back. Middle somehow.
Wait.
Hi, Carly. How are you?
So are you gonna do, are you gonna, thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How you doing?
So I think, Carlene, I think you ought to be on Bookmobile
They should
karaoke.
put your face
Have you
on,
seen
yeah.
Bookmobile karaoke on the?
I
Oh, you
know.
should watch
Oh
them.
my gosh.
Hi, Steve. Yeah, good to see you.
Hey, Steve.
How's it going? This is gonna be a little bit longer than the normal group or the normal time.
Yeah, I knew I could always see him in some.
Oh, cool. Oh, wow. Very cool. It's nice to see this many people. It takes this many people to keep the library going and supported.
Everybody just loves the library.
Well, they're very,
Right? Be in that
very
picture?
important.
No,
Aren't you?
I'm the picture taker.
Oh, David.
Okay.
Yeah, she's down there,
Okay.
yeah.
Can't see Teresa. Teresa, stand on a box. Good idea. Okay, let's see. I feel like kind of slow. Let's balance this out a little bit.
All right, ready, and 1, 2, 3, and everybody take pictures.
Say 1, 2, 3. Throw your hands in the air and go yay. 1, 2, 3. Yay! Awesome.
That was a good one.
Library.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying. Yeah. We're very efficient these days.
Again, thank you everyone so much. If you could join us in the hallway, please. We're going to take a group photo outside.
Had to push my chair out of the way.
Yes.
Get rid of her.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all those generous donations, and thank you, Tracy, and your group there, Library Foundation and Friends, for all the good work. Okay, our next special order of business is the second survey results of the pilot residential food scraps recycling program. And with us, we have Dave Staub. I think you're giving the presentation this evening. Welcome.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Again, I'm Dave Staub, Deputy Director of Public Works. So I'm just here to present on our second residential food scrap program survey. Just a little bit of background. SB 1383 requires a 50% reduction of organics going to landfills by the year 2020, and also a 75% reduction by the year 2025. And seeing that on the horizon, we decided in 2017 to implement a pilot residential food scrap recycling program. It's a 4-year pilot. About over 4,800 households were provided new split carts in October of 2017. So here's some stats. Since the program was started, we collected 310 tons of food scraps between October 2017 and April 2018, which equates to about 20 pounds per month per customer. Environmental program staff has conducted 204 in-person outreach assistance appointments to date. We've increased garbage capacity for 130 customers at no charge, and also increased recycling capacity for 48 customers at no charge. So again, this is the second survey. We presented the first survey's results in January this year. We conducted both the surveys in the same manner, asked basically the same questions. The surveys were available both online, and we mailed out surveys to all participating residents. We got extremely good results from both surveys in terms of turnout. We had a 29% response rate for survey number 1, followed up by a 26% response rate for survey number 2, which was mailed out June 1st. By and large, we didn't see a lot of change over the 2 surveys. Participation rate, which measured folks that were using the food scrap side of their cart, dipped to 2% between the 2 surveys. Garbage capacity issues, we did see a dip from weekly from 28% to 20% of those that returned surveys, and those kind of dropped back to, yes, occasionally they were having garbage capacity issues. That went from 24% to 34%. Those that did not have garbage capacity issues remained very similar, from 43% to 42%. The challenges, by far the largest challenge for both surveys, was difficulty fitting larger items in the garbage side of the split cart. New cart was heavy. We got a bit more response for that in the second survey than the first survey. Also, not sure which type of bags to utilize. That dropped substantially from 432 respondents to 193 in the second survey. We attribute that to, we saw that was an issue during the first survey, and we definitely outreached participating customers on which types of bags to use. So we did see substantial improvement on that. And then a small dip in issues of disposing of non-recyclable items such as diapers or medical waste. Other challenges that were reported over the second survey, the food scrap side is too large. There's wasted space in the container. Some cart issues, lids cracking, the dividers coming loose, wheels falling off of the carts. Concern about pests. The cart is difficult to clean, and leak and odors. Overall customer satisfaction went up a bit in the second survey. The first survey, 53% of customers reported they were satisfied or somewhat satisfied. That shifted to 57% in the second survey. 37% in the first survey reported they were dissatisfied or somewhat dissatisfied, and that dropped to about 35% in the second survey. So that's basically an update on our second survey. Our next steps are we'll continue to monitor the program and address issues as they arise. We're not planning any additional customer satisfaction surveys at this time. The survey results are very valuable for us, and they will be used to assist in the evaluation of future organics collection systems to comply with the short-lived climate pollutant regulations as set forth in Senate Bill 1383. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available to take questions.
Councilmember O'Neill.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stahl. So one of the things, when you look at these numbers, things have gotten a little better, but still, in terms of the percentage of people who are, dissatisfied or somewhat dissatisfied, from my perspective, I think from anybody's perspective, those are still a very high percentage. And, to me, aren't really accept an acceptable level of satisfaction. So one of my questions would be, to try to figure out how much is this to do with this program versus in general, like, do we know where we were with satisfaction with the solid waste program before we went into this pilot? Do we have numbers that we can, do we have kind of like a baseline? So do we know where the opinions went once we started? Who knows? Maybe people were even more dissatisfied before, but so do we have a baseline?
The answer to the question is no, we did not have baseline information on what people's customer satisfaction is with the current Clean Green program, where it's just placed in a green cart.
Okay. So then my second question, I think that some of the things when I'd read some things when we first started online, when we talk about that this is a pilot program, is it really perhaps more accurate to say that this is a pilot for the program that's going to be rolled out to the whole city rather than a pilot for whether or not we're going to do this? Because as you said in your presentation, we have, state requirements that we have to meet. And, unless we're really thinking that there's some other way that we could possibly meet those objectives, which I understand particularly in light of everything we've been hearing and just even in the past week about issues related to climate change. So my basic question is this pilot really a pilot for the whole city as opposed to a pilot as opposed to whether we're going to continue with this program or not?
We haven't made a determination if this is going to be the organics collection system rolled out citywide. The other option would be to provide every customer with a Clean Green container and have organics placed in the Clean Green container. But this was the option that we wanted to test out. We thought this would be the most cost effective. So we wanted to test this first. The other reason is there's about 15% of the households that subscribe to townhouse service that do not have Clean Green containers at this time. So this was the easiest one to roll out over the course of the routes.
So based on whatever extrapolation that you may do on the data from this, do you think, or is the current thinking of your team that if this program or something very close to it were rolled out throughout the city, that we would be able to meet the requirements that the state is imposing on the reduction into the landfill? Would this program get us there?
It wouldn't. This program solely would not get us there. This is just the single-family residential component. We also need to be considering what we're going to roll out for commercial businesses, multifamily dwellings, and it's part of an overall solution.
So we still have quite a ways to go then. Okay, great. Thank you. Those are my questions for now.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, Dave. How far are we into the program right now? About a year, is it?
1 year.
1
yes.
year. Okay. Okay. So I was thinking. So 310 tons of food. That's a lot of food scraps being collected. And I was fortunate enough to have a tour of the facility and was really, really impressed, and actually met a local business, a green business that had a tour of the facility recently, and they were very impressed with it as well, and how just everything, the recycling as well as the food scraps are just every little bit is pulled out of those food scraps, and even water, and finding a way to recycle it. and turn into dog food and chicken food, I guess it is, or chicken feed, and just hopefully doing something good with it. Based on the participation rate and the numbers that you have here, the people that aren't participating, what are they doing in terms of getting rid of their garbage? Do you know?
Most of them are putting all of their garbage on the garbage side of the split cart and not utilizing the food scrap side of the cart.
Okay. And then, based on the challenges that you reported, are you trying to do something about that to improve it, or using it to create new carts, or how are you using that data to help hopefully keep this pilot project going?
So the information that we've helped's been really helpful in terms of targeting outreach. We made substantial improvements on the bag liners in terms of, we reduced the number of folks claiming that to be an issue by over 50%. If we were to move forward citywide with this, I think it's apparent that we would need a cart redesign that has not quite as much food scrap compartment space and more garbage space, because capacity is by far the largest issue, and that's something that we would need to address if we go further.
Okay, and one of the concerns I did hear regards, like, I guess, seniors and, the cart being too heavy, and, they just can't deal with it. And any action that is being taken to help alleviate that problem?
So at this time, there's not an action to, replace the carts or give carts back. The carts are what's out there. We've taken that information into account, and, if we were to roll out citywide, we would try and make a more user-friendly cart. There is backyard service available at no additional charge for residents who wish to subscribe to it if they're unable to move their carts. So there is assistance available.
Great, thank you very much. I have no other questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Mahan.
Thank you. Do you have any idea what sort of reduction rate you would have been looking for in order to sort of project that you'd be on track for compliance in 2020?
So because it's a disposal-based calculation, all of our disposals kind of lumped together with residential, commercial, and multifamily. Residential actually makes up a very small percentage of our disposal rate. So, there's actually going to be a lot more diversion gained once we start implementing commercial programs. When we set out to roll this out, we were expecting somewhere between 7 to 8 pounds per household per month. We're relatively close to that, or per week. So we're relatively close to where we thought we would be, but in terms of overall reduction, it's a relatively small piece of the pie compared to commercial, but we still are required to implement the programs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any more council questions. I have a member of the audience that would like to speak on this issue, and maybe more. Kurt Vertan, if you'd like to come forward. And if anyone else would like to speak on this issue, please queue up. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I actually have past experience with using these split things. They did a trial in San Jose, and I wasn't super thrilled with how it ended up turning out personally. One thing I would ask that you consider, and maybe as part of the programs that happen at the Agri-Hood, is maybe a composting program to help people that have the interest to compost their own stuff rather than trying to give it to the city and having them dispose of it or reuse it or turn it into food or whatever, that they can do it internally and that it's not that hard to do and help guide them a little bit. That would be great. And I didn't realize that you were looking at commercial applications. I can underscore the commercial need for something like this. And as a business that generates, I'm probably not a ton like some full service restaurants do, but We do generate organic material that we would love to be able to compost. The problem is it's got to be easy and it's got to be able to fit into our operations. We don't have a lot of space. We can't have like 8 bins to put things in. I would love to see a compost bin that gets maintained and managed by an outsource or something like that. Maybe it gets pulled once a day or whatever it is. But please work with, before you pilot a commercial project around this, please work with the commercial community to understand the needs before you start piloting. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Patty Picard. I didn't know I was going to be speaking about this, but I am in the pilot project. And I don't mind separating out the food scraps, but the can is not a great can. And when I think of a pilot project, I think of different types of things being used in different parts of the city, not one pilot, and that's it, and let's just keep going and going and going and see if it improves. To me, that's not a pilot. A pilot would be using different cans in different places to see which one is working best and what you get the best results from. Thank you.
Good comments. Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, well, thank you very much, Dave, for the presentation, and I guess we'll continue on taking those comments into consideration. Thank you. So our next special order of business is recognition of the 10th anniversary of the JW House. So I need to put on my pin from the dinner. Oh, I skipped one. I'm going to go to the JW House first, and then we'll go to public power. Because I put this pin on, so I did it on purpose. Okay. I was excited. So I want to call Anne Marie forward, and Carol, if you'd like to come forward, just to be up front here. For our special order of business this evening, the City Council has invited JW House founders Anne Marie Knappen and JW House board member Carol Zimring to congratulate them on the 10th anniversary of the JW House, which is located on the Santa Clara Kaiser Permanente campus. Was our Kaiser representative still here or not? No, he's not, unfortunately. The JW House staff and volunteers have welcomed thousands of families to enjoy a warm meal, much needed support, and a comfortable bed since first opening its doors in 2008. The JW House exists because of Geert and Anne-Marie Knappen's son, Jan Willem J.W. Knappen, who as a boy battling cancer wanted to do something to help children and their families facing the same challenges that he and his family faced. At the time of his death in August of 2005, JW had contributed to the fundraising efforts for the JW House, and he knew that there would be a JW House one day. The JW House recently celebrated their 10th anniversary, which also marked JW's 30th birthday. And what an event that was, a spectacular event in honor of his birthday. And at this time, I'd like Anne-Marie Knappen and Carol Zimring to the podium. I think you have a presentation for us this evening.
We have a small video that kind of gives...
wonderful.
And
Thank
then
you.
we can say something. Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to say a little over 13 years ago, we were here with a group of people who presented, our dream, the dream of our boy, and he was with us. And you were one of the people who believed in us and who helped us getting there. And Patty, you were mayor then, and you promised JW, you were going to get that key and open that house, remember? And a few years later, you were there with that key to open that house. And here we are 10 years after opening that house again with all you. And it's really an honor to be here. And Carol came with me tonight. Carol is one of our volunteer board members. She is somebody who helps us. She has us in mind all the time, and these are the people you need, because every day, again, we need to keep the house going. So maybe you want to say a few words too, Carol.
So, yes, on behalf of the JW House Board and the staff and all the volunteers, it's really an honor that, you're recognizing us, and I feel very honored to be part of it. So, thank you very much.
So I have one request, and it's not because the people who were before us asked that, but a little over 13 years ago, we took a picture with you guys, and I would like to have another picture.
If you could meet us down here, we have a proclamation for you as well.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can somebody take a picture with my...
There'll be many people taking pictures.
Good.
Okay, here we go.
All right, I'm sorry, Public
Madam
Power
Mayor?
Week. Now we have
sorry,
our...
Madam Mayor? Madam Mayor,
yes,
I had a comment.
I'm sorry. Councilmember
Yes, I
Mayhew.
wanted to thank Anne Marie for being here and the director of the JW House. JW was such a remarkable young man, and he accomplished more in his 16 years than most of us ever do in a lifetime. And he touched so many lives. It's hard for me to believe that it's been 10 years. But the number of people that you have served and the number of families to whom you've given hope and comfort and care is simply remarkable. And it's all because of one young man's dream and his commitment. It happens to be Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I'm here to say after 7 years of battling it, last week I found out I'm finally cancer-free, at least at this point. But I have to say I was able to win my battle because I learned from JW, you never, never give up. He never did, and I learned from him. I'm sure many, many people have learned from him. I still have my bracelet, never give up. And believe me, JW is a person who will never, never be forgotten.
Thank you for those words, Councilmember Mayhem. Thank you. Okay.
Public power.
Okay. Public Power Week. Yes. Our Director of Electric Utility, John Rockema. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. I just want to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about Public Power Week, which is the first full week of October every year, and it celebrates the 2,000 not-for-profit community-owned utilities across the United States that serve over 49 million people in the country here. It's hosted by the American Public Power Association, and some of the benefits of public power include, we're responsive to our customers, low rates, not-for-profit. We provide a highly reliable service, environmentally responsible. We're really strongly community focused, but most importantly, we got local control. You, the council, are regulators and set our rates, and so we're here to respond to the customers and citizens of Santa Clara. A few of the activities we have this week, we'll have tables both at the libraries for the next couple of days, staffed by our employees with an interactive activity there. We also have our display case where we are highlighting our mutual aid efforts to the Carr Fire, supporting another one of our public power communities, the Reading Electric Utility, after the devastation they had in the fires up there. Just a couple other activities for our commercial industrial customers. We are conducting tours of our Donald von Racefield power plant. And then we also have presentations for our staff here. There's 93,000 public power employees across the country, and these presentations would be, for ours here. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and point out the benefits of public power. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions, Director? No, thank you very much. Any member of the public? Okay, seeing none. We have also two other proclamations where we didn't have representatives to accept them here, so I just wanted to read briefly from each of them. The first is that October is Bullying Prevention Month. Every October, individuals from across the nation and around the world unite in the annual campaign to keep all youth safe from bullying. And throughout the United States, children and adolescents are affected by bullying annually. Every day, thousands of young people experience bullying from their peers while at school, after school, in their neighborhoods, and even when they are at home through social media and texts on electronic devices. And bullying directly affects a student's ability to learn. Students who are bullied often do not want to go to school and often find it difficult to concentrate, show a decline in grades, and lose self-esteem, self-confidence, and self-worth. Various researchers have concluded that bullying is the most common form of violence, affecting millions of American children and adolescents annually. Research shows that bullying is not only devastating while it's happening, and that the negative effects of bullying last a lifetime. Targets of bullying are more likely to acquire physical, emotional, and learning problems. Students who are repeatedly bullied often fear such activities as riding the bus, going to school, and attending community activities. So the City of Santa Clara and the Santa Clara schools, students, parents, recreation programs, and community organizations were encouraged to engage in a variety of awareness and prevention activities designed to make our community safer for children and adolescents, and our venture and our work against bullying. So we'll send this to the proper organization on that. So that's for the month of October. And as was mentioned slightly earlier, the month of October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Breast Cancer Awareness Month is celebrated through the month of October to increase awareness of the disease, to raise funds for research into its cause, prevention, diagnosis, treatment, and cure, as well as to educate people about the importance of early screening and detecting breast cancer early. The third Friday in October each year is National Mammography Day. This year, National Mammography Day will be celebrated on October 19th. A mammography, the screening test for breast cancer, can detect breast cancer up to 2 years before physical symptoms can be seen or felt. About 1 in 8 women in the United States will develop breast cancer over the course of her lifetime. In 2018, an estimated 266,120 new cases of breast cancer are expected to be diagnosed in women, and breast cancer in men is rare. In 2018, an estimated 2,500 new cases of breast cancer are expected to be diagnosed in men. Most women can survive breast cancer if it's found and treated early. Death rates from breast cancer have been declining, and these changes are thought to be the result of treatment advances, early detection through screening, and increased awareness. So we're here today declaring the month of October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Santa Clara, and call upon all Santa Clara residents to raise awareness for breast cancer prevention and the importance of detecting breast cancer early. So for the council, those two will be delivered to the appropriate organizations on our behalf. Okay, the next item we have is the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar will be approved with one motion unless there's a member of the council or the public wanting to pull one of those items for discussion. And as a reminder, we have taken off item 2S. That's off the agenda earlier. Yes.
I'd like to pull 2L. The Marcelli family is here. I would like them to hear that.
Okay, 2L. Are there any other members of the council wanting to pull an item? Seeing none, any member of the public, would any member like to pull an item on the consent calendar? Okay.
Motion to approve the balance of the consent calendar.
So there's a motion to approve the balance and a second. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. With the council's indulgence, can we talk about the item that was pulled from the consent calendar before public presentations? Is that okay? All right, so Councilmember Davis, you pulled item
2L.
Okay, so item 2L, which is action on naming Reed and Grant Street Community Center building the Jerry Marcelli Community Center. Yes, Councilmember Davis.
I see that Brian and Janelle are here, and Denise, I want to
Lori
see
and Lori.
Okay. I want to make a motion to approve this recommendation from the Parks and Rec to award the name of the Reed Street Jerry Marcelli. And I would really like one of you to thank you. Come up. Janelle, come on, Brian. I know this is near and dear to your hearts, and I would like to make that motion so that we can move on with that. But Brian, could you, for your dad?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the city staff. Again, my name is Brian Marcelli, and on behalf of my entire family, I would like to first take this opportunity to again thank the Parks and Recreation Commission, as well as the Facilities Naming Committee, for the generous recommendation and support to name the Reed and Grant Street Sports Park Community Building after my father, Jerry Marcelli. As you are aware, my father spent many years involved with youth sports and activities in the city. As a Parks and Recreation Commissioner, a soccer and Little League coach for my siblings and I, running the PAL program, and also serving on the board of the Santa Clara Vanguard. He loved this city and dedicated most of his life to make Santa Clara a great place for all its residents. The addition of these new athletic fields and this community building will be incredibly valuable to all the citizens of Santa Clara. Memorializing his legacy of dedication and community service at this new facility is incredibly thoughtful and humbling. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
Did you want to say something, Councilmember Colstaff?
Thank you very much, Mayor. I just want to introduce these Marcelli people. There's a heck of a gang of them out there.
There's lots of them.
There's the two sisters, Lori and Denise.
Can you stand up so everyone can see you? Thank you.
And Denise's husband, Jerry. He's the very handsome one there. And the son and daughter, Janelle and Brian, are there. And we all know Brian, he's so big. I want to congratulate you on coming back from Italy this week. And I just want to put in a plug for this family. The Marcelli family a few years ago started the Marcelli Family Foundation, and they raise money, and then they cook food all Wednesday before Thanksgiving and all day Thanksgiving Day, and they feed people that need a meal at St. Clair's Church. And I've been there a couple of times on Thanksgiving serving up the chow, and I tell you what, it's a great way to spend Thanksgiving. There's homeless people, there's hungry people, there's people that are lonely and living alone and just looking for somebody to hang out with. And I'm putting in a plug for this event. If anybody wants to donate money to the Marcelli Family Foundation, it would help buying food for just regular folks who aren't as lucky as some of the rest of us. So thank you all for carrying on the good work that your family's been doing for generations. Thank you.
And a little story I wanted to tell about the Reed and Grand Street Sports Park. I wasn't 100% sold on having that property reused as a sports park because of the previous use and some other reasons. And it really was, I have to say, it was Jerry who came to me and said, no, we need to do this. We really need to have that sports facility there. It's going to be a great sports facility for the kids. And again, I wasn't sold, but he sold me on it. So I think it's very appropriate that that building be named after him. So we have a motion.
Are you going to second my
And a
motion?
second, Councilmember Colstead.
Colstead seconded.
Register your vote. And that passes unanimously. I also want to say that we have been told that this sports park will be open in about the end of 2019, I think, around the end of 2019. And I'm hoping when we do have the opening, we can also have the dedication of the building at the same, if we can do it at the same time, because I think it would make sense to have it all, you know, done. And so make sure the signs are made, okay? We can save money with a big celebration.
Big party.
All right. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so next we have public presentations. And I promise this gentleman, if you'd like to come up now.
Thank you, Mayor, and
yes.
Thank you, Ian, City Council. My name is Timothy Tang, and I'm the owner of 3760 Peacock Court. That's an apartment complex. The reason I'm here is just because I received the administrative citation for illegal dumpings. And first of all, I received the notice, and the notice was issued on the September 14th, and with Jamie McCoy. No contact information, no emails. And also there's a pictures on that with 4 pictures. And the 2 of those, you know, pictures was right in front of my property. Yes, that's the, I had a tenant, you know, move out on the September 1st, and he left those things. I contacted him, text him, you know, asked him to take care of that. But fortunately, he just ignored. So what happened was on the September 8th, which was Saturday, I paid money, had someone, you know, to come in to hold away. And then on the following Monday, which is September 11th, and I called Trajan Regala, which I first received a phone call from him. And also I left a message to Jamie McCoy. And Jamie called me back at the 13/12, the same day on the September 11th. And I told her, you know, I already taken care of those dumpings in front of my properties. And she just said, what about across the street? I said, what's about that? She says, those are also, I need to take care of those. And I say, those properties, those dumpings, I was not recognized. And I just taken care of, the dumping right in front of my properties. And, but she just raised the voice and yelled at me because I asked her, I said, how do you prove those things across the street was from my tenants? She yelled, raised the voice and yelled at me, go to ask your neighbors. I said, which neighbor? My left neighbor is a 4-unit apartment complex. My right neighbor is also a 4-plex, She didn't say, she just hanged up, okay? And then when I received those citations, the citation says.
If you could just finish that up.
The citation says, inspection was September 17th, and the issue date was September 18th, with those pictures. And I can swear that those things across the street, those things are the bad frames, aluminum. They left over there, and just by the next day, it was gone. So that was September 5th or 6th. It was gone, okay?
Okay, so.
So those are the things I think, city
Yes, sir.
staff provide illegal, fabrications.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We can't take action, but we can, by consensus, refer this to the city manager to help you with that. So can we get your, or Craig, or whatever, the city?
I'm going to ask the department director for Public Works, who this matter has already been elevated to, just to take in any additional information and
Yes, if
and
this
work
is
with
our
Mr.
Director of
Tang.
Public Works here, sir, if you'd like to talk to him so he can help you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a list, Mr. Jane, I guess if you'd like to come forward, since you're already here, go ahead, and then I'll go down the list. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Well, I'm pleased that the legislative advocacy policy that you just passed includes the Climate Action Plan. So yesterday, the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, released a new dire report on the impact of 1.5 degrees Celsius rise in global temperatures. Human activities release over 40 billion tons of carbon dioxide per year by our burning of fossil fuels. That is the equivalent of burning all of the forests in all of Africa every year. The average temperature of the planet has increased already by 1 degree Celsius, or 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit, and is pretty much guaranteed to get to 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2040, since the temperature is currently rising by 0.2 degrees Celsius per decade. The report describes a world of worsening food shortages, wildfires, and mass die-off of coral reefs as soon as 2040, a period well within the lifetime of much of the global population. The estimated $54 trillion in damage from 1.5 degrees of warming could grow to 69 trillion if the world continues to warm by 2 degrees and beyond. We must stop burning fossil fuels as soon as possible. I'm pleased that the city is actively promoting electric vehicle charging. I ask that our climate action plan be as aggressive as possible and the city create a position for a full-time sustainability manager, like all the cities around us. I also see on the consent calendar, item 2D, action on agreements for on-call heating, ventilation, air conditioning, HVAC services, which appropriates $350,000 to repair HVAC equipment in the city. I ask that the contractors not simply replace like for like, but look at installing more energy efficient all-electric equipment, including programmable thermostats in City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Patty Picard, followed by Nick Kaspar. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for the generous time allotted to speak. To meet the ever-changing needs of the 15,000 plus students of Santa Clara Unified School District, I urge a yes vote on Measure BB. I urge everyone to attend one or both of the community forums scheduled to give facts, and I stress facts about this bond project, and post projects. The first one is tomorrow night, 6 o'clock to 7:30 at Don Calajon School. The second community forum is Monday, October 15th from 6 to 7:30 in the Santa Clara High School Theater. Please seek out the facts. Check out the district website at www.santaclara.usd.org. Now, I've heard that some that oppose the bond will be filming the meetings. I urge them to please live stream so everyone can get the facts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you for that. Nick Caspar and then Chris Brown after that. Welcome, sir.
Nick Caspar, Santa Clara Chamber of Commerce, registered lobbyist. On September 18th, City Council unanimously approved a motion to note and file the audit report, the final audit report of the Chamber of Commerce, with the caveat that we'd have the opportunity to present tonight. There is no other conditions in this motion. Late last week, the Chamber received an email from city staff postponing our presentation from tonight until November 13th. Had we presented tonight, we would have shown that there was misstatements and inaccuracies in the audit. Along with that, we would have shared our concerns with the city's actions surrounding this audit. We have posted our audit response on the Chamber website, and we welcome everyone in the public and council to review this, our response. Thank you.
Thank you. City staff, do you have any comment on that?
I do. I was going to make a comment as part of the later item under general business, but the independent auditor reached out to Rusha Ikata, stating that she had a personal family commitment. She did make efforts to try to move her commitment. Ultimately, it just was not possible, and we delayed the item to November. We are hoping that by that time the TID audit will also be complete. The independent auditor did mention that her date for completing that audit as well was November, and the council would be able to have a full picture of both audits, given that the two items, as she found and determined, were somewhat interrelated and should be, that part of the audit should be completed as well. So we're hoping to bring back the completion of both audits, and as the last audit, the chamber will get an advanced draft. They will have time to review the draft, provide comments to the independent auditor before the item is brought in final form to the council.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Madam Mayor? Yeah, I had a question.
Oh, Councilmember Mahan?
So when is it set to come back, and why can't it come back like next week? I was expecting to see it, and I was frankly surprised to see it wasn't even on the agenda. It wasn't even set for council approval to continue it, because the council set a date certain, so I'm not sure why it wasn't at least put on the agenda for consideration by the council for a continuance as our normal procedure would allow. And why is it being postponed so long? Because there's so much misinformation out there. I have calls from business people calling me saying, why are we getting these letters from the city, saying all these things about our chamber, and they have nowhere to turn. They haven't heard the other side. They can't access information on the other side. We were set to hear it for tonight, and I think people were expecting and hoping to hear the other side tonight, and now it's going to be postponed until, frankly, after the election. And I think the public deserves to know, in the interest of transparency, the other side ASAP, not more than a month from now.
So I can't speak to why it's not on the agenda in past practices. We've deferred item in both ways, whether it's been on the council agenda and deferred, or whether it's just been deferred administratively. I can speak to this was a date that was coordinated with the independent auditor. It seems as if with the completion of the TID audit, it made sense to be efficient with her attendance here. I did mention, and without breaching her privacy, that it was a personal family commitment, and we wanted to honor that.
I understand that, but why a month from now? Why not
next
week? Why not come forward next week?
As we said, as I stated already, we looked for a date that we were both mutually available. That's the date that she confirmed. We are hoping at that time to be able to bring forward the TID audit, which it looks promising at this point, and the council will have full information at that time.
I would
Also
really like to hear
encourage-
from the chamber long before a month from now. Like I say, I'm getting so many calls and people calling me
It actually
saying, what
looks
is
like
going
the
on?
chamber's item is posted, so there is
But
information, and we'll
it's
also
not at our
re-release
council
that.
meeting.
Wait, 1 second.
The
Stop,
transparent process where both sides are given equal opportunity through equal channels to air both sides of this very critical issue.
I understand that. The auditor isn't here tonight. It's not on the agenda, so we're not hearing it tonight. One thing, if the chamber would like to get the information out now so that we could make that public, we would be happy to have it now. And the reason those letters went out is because the chamber sent out letters to the businesses with misinformation on those letters, and the city was just responding to that misinformation, and the city didn't initiate those letters. It was in response. I know, I'm a chamber member. I got the letters myself, so to my business. So I think that it makes sense for us to hear everything at once, since the TID and the audit of the TID was included in the chamber operations, and the information that we've had so far has been quite disturbing. I know, Councilmember Mahan, you didn't support the auditing or the termination.
That's not true. I supported
excuse me,
the
I'm
audit.
speaking, please.
But I supported the audit. Don't
termination
misrepresent
of the
me.
agreement. But it's very important that we get all the information out, get all the audit information out on all the operations. It was the Convention Center management, it was the Convention Visitors Bureau, it was the commingling of the Political Action Committee with public funds, and now it's the Tourist Improvement District money that flowed through the Convention Visitors Bureau and the Chamber of Commerce. These are serious issues with public money. We're not going to just put something out there without all the facts. We need to have all the facts. It's important that we get the final audit in, get that information. The chamber will have plenty of time to give us their side of the story, their information. If we have something wrong, they should bring it forward and let our auditors know and our city staff know and the council know. So I understand. I don't want to hear this 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Let's get all the information at once and move it forward. So that's how I feel it's moving ahead in a very professional way. If the chamber would like to get their information out to us now to start correcting things that they think are wrong, please do it. If that's important, we can at least start looking at it now, if that's the pleasure of the chamber. So
I'll also just add that with the availability of the chamber's response, which was not otherwise going to be available, we'll forward the report to the independent auditor so that she can prepare accordingly on November 13th.
And that's perfect. Thank you.
Yes, sir. The final audit has already been sent out and was discussed 2 weeks ago. And so that's been a 2-week period before we've had to address it. And I totally agree that these are very serious allegations against us, and we would like the opportunity to present and represent our side to disprove a lot of these allegations against us. And that's why we feel it is so important to get out there instead of having a 2-month period before we have a response to it. Now, that it was done 2 weeks ago, and it's already been another 2 weeks, and now we're pushing out another month later.
Nothing stops you, Mr. Kaspar, from getting that information out now. And just for the record, I want to be clear that the preliminary audit went to the chamber. You gave extensive comments to the preliminary audit that were included in the final audit. So you have had one opportunity already. We're certainly available to give you another opportunity for those final comments to that audit. And then of course, we want your comments to the TID audit as well when that comes out. And hopefully, when is that? Another week or so? Or 2 weeks? We want your comments on that too, so we can have a full discussion about everything. So if you want to send us information now, please do it. We can make that public and we can start at least absorbing it. There's so much information with that audit.
So is Your Honor suggesting that you would give them an opportunity at a council meeting to make that information public? At a council meeting?
No, I'm saying they can submit it now. We can put it on our site.
And make it public at a council meeting. How else is it made public except at a council meeting?
Can we do it on the 13th?
That was the plan, to receive something in writing from the chamber and
I
then
understand they've
prepare
already
that as
submitted
part of
that.
the council distributed packet, and then allow for the independent auditor to receive in writing their response, and then bring that forward. So that's where it appears as if what the council originally entertained on September 18th is in fact what's going to happen on November 13th.
And it should have happened tonight. I'm sorry. It's being delayed, and I think strategically and politically, and it's unfair to the chamber.
All right, thank you very much. We have Chris Brown, followed by Robin S. Good evening.
Good evening. The city's statement of values indicates that the city shall serve our community with fairness and respect, putting the needs of the community before all. Additionally, in the media, Mayor Lisa Gilmore has repeatedly and vehemently complained about the 49ers' continued lack of accountability, openness, and transparency. And in addition, their failure to provide documentation requested by the city. But how does the city stack up against their own values, statements of value, and fairness? I submit that the city has failed spectacularly in this effort. I'm a homeowner and longtime resident of the city of Santa Clara. Beginning in 2013, I participated in the NCIP Housing and Rehabilitation Program, now a full 5 years ago. In those 5 years, I have experienced a repeated pattern of unfair, unethical, and unlawful actions by members of the city leadership and its employees. Here is an incomplete list of misdeeds, malfeasance, and unlawful actions performed by the city and its employees and representatives. Overbilling for work not done, authorization for double billing indebted to my city loan, concealment of a full 30% of the cost of the project indebted on my loan but never presented to me for authorization, including for work not performed. Attempted conversion of funding by a federal grant to indebtedness on my loan. Falsification of project and billing documentation. Collusion with the service provider. Extended perjury in a court of law by city leadership. Breach of contract. Violation of the city's own code of ethics. Abject incompetency or perhaps collusion on the part of the city's claims adjuster. And complete and total refusal to take responsibility for or be accountable to these extensive, unlawful, unfair, and disrespectful actions. Where are we now? A few months ago, the city offered me an outrageous sum of blood money, well more than should be considered judicious in my opinion. When we asked the leadership to take responsibility for their actions per the code of ethics, the city rescinded their offer, all the while refusing to amend my loan and still refusing to issue accurate, complete documentation for the bill we still owe. I seek an amendment to my loan with the city with accompanying accurate and complete legal documentation to support that amended loan.
Thank you. City Attorney, I don't think we're able to discuss this since there's a lawsuit was filed against.
That is correct. There's ongoing litigation, so we cannot comment on ongoing litigation.
All right, thank you. Robin S., I think it will be the same case for the speaker as well. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm not aware of any lawsuit. We haven't filed a lawsuit. Have you filed a lawsuit against us? No, there is no lawsuit. No one will take our claim. I have listened to you, Lisa Gilmore, repeatedly, vehemently saying we are accountable, open, and transparent. Also, the facts are the facts, and the facts speak for themselves. And everything Chris Brown just said just now, it's all true. It's not exaggerated. You know, Teresa O'Neill, you've met with us 3 times. You know these things are true. Every single one of you has been getting documentation and emails for almost 3 years now. Deanna Santana has never responded to us. Rajiv Batra never responded to our request for an explanation of the perjury committed by Tamara Haas in a court of law, lying about the actions of the city, lying about the actions of the homeowner. Nobody has talked to us. Your refusal to engage with us, your refusal to sit down and work out the details with us. It's very simple. You guys violated the law. You paid a contractor for work he didn't do. You paid him for change orders that not only the courts say don't exist, but the contractor says he never does with the city, and all the time he's dealt with the city, and he's your vetted contractor. It doesn't take a lot to sit down and go, okay, what is right? Was this work done, yes or no? You paid him duplicate invoices. You okayed invoices for a contract that didn't even exist. It clearly says total bid amount. And Kelvin Malco, your housing inspector, says okay to pay. That was a full 2 months before a contract existed, and before a full 2 months before any work was even performed, even started. You have paid him, the contractor, for materials he never purchased. They went directly to our loan. Kelvin Malco paid for them. They went directly to our loan. You paid him before the work was even started. You paid him before the work was done. You paid him for work that was removed from the contract. You were not validating against the contract. You were not validating against previous billings. You were not validating against actual work done. I want to know where your accountability, openness, and transparency is right now. I want to know when you say on here that in your code of ethics, all these violations, there's multiple code of ethics violations, and it says there, moral courage. And I question each and every one of you, where's your moral courage to stand up and look us in the face and say, we did it wrong, we screwed up. And on top of screwing up, we also tried to conceal it somehow. We moved money around, we lied under oath, we falsified documents. All of this is true, no exaggeration, not even the least bit. Anybody want to talk to me? I have the documents. Every single document we have that shows it is documents the city provided to us. They are not confidential. They are actual documents the city provided to us. They're their emails. I am appalled and ashamed that you would accuse anyone of malfeasance when it is so blatantly clear that this is what you're guilty of. Please show us some respect. Please show the recipients of the NCIP program some respect and the rest of the residents of Santa Clara.
Thank you. And again, city attorney, assistant city attorney can't respond to that.
It would not be appropriate to comment at this time.
Thank you. Kurt Vartan, you're next.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm up here just to make an observation of some behavior that I saw tonight. And when the seat that the mayor is sitting in now is occupied by a different woman mayor, I saw a lot of heavy-handed talk. I saw a lot of disrespecting audience members, and I'll talk from personal experience. I saw a lot of shutting down public discussion. And one of the things that I think is incredibly hypocritical of this particular now councilwoman is her need for order and rules and discussion and order. And to demand that when in command, so to speak. And to see the level of discourse that that this member is doing now, I think is hypocritical at best. And to cut people off, to talk over people, whether it's the mayor or the city manager or anybody else, I think is disrespectful and is hypocritical to what you dictated when you were in that position of power. And I just think it was important for me to come up here and say that. I'm not trying to be negative or create undue discourse, and I say this with respect to the dais right now, but I think it's incredibly disrespectful and inconsistent on how this person has behaved in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public presentations? Please come forward. All right, we've dealt with consent items pulled for discussion. Our next item is a public hearing general business, and we have consideration of a written petition submitted by Anna Vargas Smith requesting sponsorship for the return of the Parade of Champions. And yes,
In
city
your packet
manager.
this evening, you have the written petition presented by Ms. Vargas Smith. She is present here this evening. You also have council policy procedures item number 30, which is relevant to adding an item on the agenda. And for tonight, for purposes of your discussion, it is to decide whether to add the item or to not add the item. And if you'd like the item added, then to please provide some kind of input as to what kind of staff analysis you'd like to inform your decision at a future council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Vargas Smith.
Good
Welcome.
evening, Mayor Lisa Gilmore, Council, Deanna. Good to see everyone. And thanks for putting me on the agenda. I'm Anna Vargas Smith from Reclaiming Our Downtown, and we're here to petition for city sponsorship of the Santa Clara Parade of Champions. Our planned relaunch date is September 29th, 2019. Next slide. What is the Parade of Champions? What I found out with doing all the surveys around town is that, oh, here we go. I got it. Thanks. So what I found out is if you moved here after 95 or you're born after 95, you pretty much don't know what the Parade of Champions. But for us who've lived here most of our lives, it's a 50-year tradition that celebrates the best and the brightest in our community since 1945. It actually started with the World War II Columbus Day Parade that celebrated the return of our World War II veterans. And the next year, the city of Santa Clara partnered with the Marsali family, the Cunha family.
Who happened to be here.
Who happened to be here. Wow, serendipity, right?
Coincidence.
And the Young Men's Institute, which was a charitable organization, to launch the Parade of Champions. The parade celebrated all things Santa Clara. I mean, the city, the mayor, the council, fire department, police departments, business, educational, community leaders, everyone was in that parade. And it pretty much showcased our talent, our local champions, Olympians, heroes from the university, schools, community groups. I mean, it was the Scouts, it was the Masons, the Rotary Club, the Lions, the Miss Santa Clara pageant, theater, music, arts, and yes, there were even Shriner clowns. I do remember that. It gave back to the community. It fed the mind and soul with purpose, connection, and civic pride. And it celebrated our history, achievements, and diverse community every year. There was something for everyone, basically. The Santa Clara Parade of Champions weekend was full of festivities. It was open to all Santa Clarans to sponsor, participate, or volunteer. And it connected diverse cultures citywide to come and share the wonderful food and art vendor booths, folk dances.
Okay. I thought you were going to tag team and go to the next one.
And there was even a carnival. At its height of popularity.
Sorry.
I like that.
Someone's at the door. Okay.
At the height of popularity, the parade actually ranked number 2 in California, just behind the Pasadena Rose Bowl parade. Mary Hamill told me that one. There was like 55,000 that attended. It was like 3 hours of pageantry. It was floats and convertibles, and I got marching bands, dance teams, school scouts, clubs, clowns, entertainment, and even a military tank in 1987. I do remember that. It attracted Hollywood and sports celebrities as grand marshals, and also world-class marching bands from around the country, like the Vanguards every year. There they are. Shout out to the Vanguards, by the way, for winning the DCI World Championship again. They are Santa Clara royalty for about 50 years, and actually we've already met with them, and they're very interested in participating again. They're very excited about this. And it's not swiping right. Here, time is actually, if you look at everything, is right for our Parade of Champions. The Marsali family's right here. We have alignment, a need for community right now. And I think together, partnered with the city, we can create the building blocks to create traditions that foster community engagement between the city, residents, charitable organizations like JW House or Bill Wilson Center, community groups, universities, schools, tech and business sectors would love to sponsor our floats, and even 49ers, NFL team. It's an opportunity to educate, promote our Santa Clara history, civic pride, and its cultural diversity citywide. It encourages love and participation of theater, music, and arts in a huge public venue. And it brings all the neighborhoods together into our historic downtown to create a sense of place and tradition for all Santa Clarans to enjoy for generations to come. Presently, frankly, there's no event like the Parade of Champions that exists that could do all that I've just described. So, dear Mayor Lisa and City Council and Deanna Santana, will you sponsor our Parade of Champions? And let us know what the next steps are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You have another speaker here? Yes, please come forward. Good evening.
I'm Rod Dunham. How are you? How is
Good.
everyone?
How are you?
As Anna said, well, first of all, my name is Rod Dunham. I'm a fourth generation Santa Claran, and it's ironic that the Marcelli family is here tonight.
It's coincidence.
That we bring this up. The Santa Clara Parade of Champions. First of all, I marched in the Santa Clara Parade of Champions in high school. I played trumpet. I was drum major. Was part of the state open field show that took place at Buckshaw Stadium. So it's near and dear to my heart, and it's been missing now for 25 years. So we thought, well, you know, from the downtown endeavor, we thought, well, you know what? Why don't we try to get the Parade of Champions back as well? And I started a Facebook group. There's about 550 folks on board now. I've also been in the marching world for many years, 30 years. I've taught high school, middle school, so I know a lot of folks. So as far as parade attendees go, you know, getting folks on board, I've already made those connections. But again, this is a breakdown of costs. This is not a small task to bring something back after being gone for so many years. There are certain things that need to happen in parades today that go without saying. Security by the Santa Clara Police Department, but everything comes at a cost. Now we're trying to be frugal. We're not going to bring back. We're not pulling out the Pasadena Rose Parade right off the bat. I mean, just to be honest. But we want to start frugal, as Mr. Marsali did and Ed Cunha did back in the early 40s. They started off very minimalistic, bringing just local drum and bugle corps that would perform in the downtown area. And then, of course, it expanded with all city, became an all-city event, as Anna had suggested. So again, bringing up certain things as looking for a possible parade coordinator and trophies, judges, and so we're basically looking for, obviously, sponsorship from the council and management and city leaders. We could go into more detail at another time, but my whole heart and soul would be, it would be great for this city, for this generation and the next, to continue the honor that Mr. Marsali had started all those years ago. So it is with great pride that I state that the leadership who ran this classic event for 50 years, as well as all city leaders and the citizens of the city of Santa Clara, it is with great pride that we announce an effort to bring this event back to Santa Clara after nearly 25 years. The proposed parade route would be along the most historic areas of our city, ending in our historic downtown region. This classic event, as Anna said, started with the many drum corps of the early 40s all the way through the Santa Clara Vanguard, and also would honor athletic champions as well as, I said, many other champions within our city. We intend to keep the honor and tradition of this classic parade alive for this generation and future generations of Santa Clarans. So there's a lot to go into this. As I said, I have a complete breakdown of coordination proposals, and I could go into more detail and provide all of you with that. Do you have any questions of me while I'm kind of trying to bring back something that the city, I think, would be very proud of?
Okay, we're going to go down the line here, so
Okay.
if you just probably want to stay there. Oh, I think there's someone else in your group, Mary Grizzle, that
Sure.
would like to speak, and
Yeah.
then we'll let your whole group speak, and then we'll go down the line here.
Great.
Thank you, so stay close.
I'll stay close.
Okay, good. Have a seat, thank you. Okay. Good evening.
Madam Gilmore and the rest of the city council and Ms. Santana. I was asked to speak tonight on behalf of the Parade of Champions, and as you all can see, my response was absolutely yes. First, the Parade of Champion is a harbinger of wonderful things to come to our city, like the rebuilding of our downtown, but more importantly, it is the catalyst by which we bring the entire city together, again to celebrate a tradition that was lost many years ago. It brings together the schools and the students, the parents and all the major clubs, as well as many diverse groups that have in common a shared love for our community as expressed by the Parade of Champions. Our group, as you all know, is non-political and is a true grassroots movement, not only to bring back the heart of the city, its downtown, but to bring back the sense of pride and cohesiveness that is so important to a city and its residents. It's the Parade of Champions. As Snoopy would say today, there is a note of happy in the air. And indeed, I feel it here in front of this city council in asking for your sponsorship. I feel confident that this city council is wanting this as much as we are. And we do hope that you will agree to our petition. Time is of the essence if we are to go forward in meeting all the deadlines to hold the parade. I thank you very much, and I especially thank the Marcelli family who said they would venture to lead the parade.
Oh, they're going to run the parade again.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I don't know. First of all, I don't know when any of you sleep, especially you, Patty. I don't know. But thank you. Councilmember Mahan. Well, let's see what the questions are, if there are any, because the item tonight is to put it on a future council agenda and to give some direction to our staff.
And I certainly would support getting it back on our agenda. And the questions aren't really for you, more for the city manager as to what the cost would be. As I recall, when we last had it more than 20 years ago, I mean, it was a substantial investment by the city. I think the budget at that point was $50,000, which, you know, in today's dollar just exponentially increased that. And you also need a staging area. So another question is, you know, where does this massive parade get staged? It used to be staged where the downtown used to be, where we had that huge vacant lot. And of course, what would be the route and how do we close the streets, which shouldn't be a huge problem. Obviously, this is not the type of grant that fits the grant policy that we just adopted a few weeks ago because it exceeds the amount. It would really be a budgeted item for our city, which means we wouldn't be able to consider it, I don't think, until the next budget cycle of, you know, July of 2019. It also takes a lot of planning, as I'm sure the Marsali family is nodding their heads. They remember what their grandfather and grandmother went through, and dad, all of them, to go through and get this thing planned. So, you know, 2 years from now might be the more feasible time frame. So I would ask that to the city manager, is how do we plan the time frame, a feasible time frame to restore this parade to our downtown. It certainly was one of the most unifying events that our city ever had, and it could be again. And I remember we had Ernest Borgnine was our master one year, and Rodney Allen Rippey was our master one year. So we had some stars come to Santa Clara. The other component of it, and I don't know if this is anything you're considering, but the evening before the parade, there was the Drum and Bugle Corps competition. It was usually at Buckshaw Stadium, and that brought a lot of those Drum and Bugle Corps teams to Santa Clara. Then in the next day, they participated in the parade. So that might be another question, if we should consider sponsoring that Drum and Bugle Corps competition to attract all of those teams to come and then participate in the parade.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill.
I'm in favor of having some more discussion about this, and in terms of what the staff would need to bring back, and I'm sure Anna and Rod and Mary and the team could help, like what might be a budget for this, or what would be the route. I know I'm involved with the Firefighters Foundation, with the Schools Foundation in terms of our firehouse run, and I know we've had to work a lot with the police department on, road closures and notifying people about that the street may be closed and all that. So, so like, coming up with what all those efforts, and the biggest expense of that run really is the public safety cost. So, what might it take? And then, like looking at, because I think one of the things that would make it very special would be to as you said, to have like this be a showcase of Santa Clara. So it would be to have the high school bands and the different local cheer groups and things like that, to have a lot of local people have a chance to perform. And so like, how quickly could we gauge the interest? I suppose, contact the school district and some of those other groups. It's great that Vanguard would be interested and all that. So those are the kinds of things. And once again, some of the challenges we have is bandwidth of the staff. And so I don't know if we would need to go out and seek out sponsorships so that perhaps we could hire somebody.
Actually, we do have some answers for you.
So those are the kind of things, what would be the sponsorship opportunities under our policies? And like I said, to raise some money so that we could, since I don't think that anybody on staff really has that kind of bandwidth, but maybe there's professionals who do this kind of thing.
Actually, we've made a tremendous amount of, we've covered a lot of ground, actually. We've met with the superintendent of schools. We've met with all the music directors from middle school to high school, and they're all in. In fact, one of our members in our core is Mr. Anderson Ladd, and so he is going to be a big proponent of getting all that musical talent from the schools in. Like I said, we have the blessings of the superintendent already. We've met with Chief Sellers. He's actually very excited about it. His pricing was actually below $10K. He compares it to something like in a 5K run is how he described it. And we met with Vanguard already, and they've already got a professional parade planner for us to, and he's already provided some numbers and a parade plan. So we've made a lot of the progress that you're referring to. It's done. So we're ready.
I could ask that you, because our discussion tonight is to put it on the agenda for discussion, but I'm hoping that it passes that we send this back to the city manager to gather all that information, because that would be a part of the due diligence process to determine costs and things like that. So it sounds like you've done a lot. So a lot of work can be transferred over to our staff so they can put it together after the vote if we put it on the agenda, which I hope we will. Councilmember Kolstad?
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we refer this back to staff, and I would give them plenty of time to crunch the numbers and prepare a staff report. I'm thinking January would be the soonest that they could possibly get this thing done. But we've assembled a great city staff that are experts at crunching the numbers, doing the logistics. I'm sure every department head in town is thinking, oh, how is this going to affect my department? What's it going to cost me in overtime, et cetera? Historically, it was always the first Saturday in October.
There you
for
go.
years. So I think that's a tradition I could support if you all decide that we could afford to do this with all the other obligations the city has. I think that motion makes the most sense. Thank you.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Councilmember Davis.
Yeah, I just wanted to second his motion, and I know that you guys are pretty much there. But the Marcelli family, do you have the book that Larry might have had from when he? Do you have that? However, he did all this. Instead of reinventing the wheel, he must have something. Okay. Okay, so could you work with our city staff on that? Because that will help so much. Because if he's got the volume, then, instead of reinventing the wheel, he's already done the work. So I think that we could move this forward, but I agree it might be in another budget time, but that will give everybody time to get back to us. Is January good for you? I mean, is that reasonable?
I think so, and what we'll do is as we continue to work together to receive the information that they've already cited, we'll communicate back with council in terms of through the city manager's blog on an update and what date we'd be focused on.
That'd be awesome. Okay, I second the motion.
Thank you. I happened to be at a Gilroy Unified School District meeting last week, and the superintendent and the board were talking about a historic parade that they just brought back to Gilroy. So I'm going to ask our staff to contact Gilroy, because they had a large committee that they put together, and the way they started their parade was they asked each school to submit a float from each school, so they had already, you know, a tremendous amount of floats. The superintendent was complaining slightly because it took so much staff time, effort, some money, and everything to put it together, but they had a tremendous parade. They said they couldn't do it again the next year. They were going to wait every other year because of just the sheer amount of work. But I'm just saying that might be, you know, in current area in terms of their costs and their work effort. But they had a separate group that was charged with, you know, putting the whole parade together. But it was a large group, a large community group. But they had very good response. Like the community loved it when they brought it back. So that's a current example, and I think we might be able to get some, even some current public safety costs, because things have changed in the public safety world from back then to today, you know, and other considerations that we have to take in. So, I mean, it's something that the parade was so much fun. I rode in so many of them over the years, and it was just a great time. But there's nothing wrong even with starting at the real local level and starting small and then building. So I think it's, you know, biting off what we can chew right now and then building on it, you know, as the years go by. I think there's nothing wrong with that. So I think it's part of the staff due diligence if they could look at Gilroy and maybe get some examples of how they put it all together with their community groups. Vice Mayor Watanabe?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I was going to suggest Mountain View. I believe Mountain View has a parade as well. And, or it's either Mountain View or Sunnyvale, but I know a nearby city has a parade as well. And I was going to suggest the same thing. Is it Sunnyvale?
No?
Mountain View? Mountain View then. Yeah, that they could give, an estimation of, you know, what kind of costs they incur, since I don't know, I think it's an annual parade.
Well, it's good to look at the governance structure of how they run it and operate it. Is it a nonprofit? How do they get their sponsorships? Those kinds of things. So if we give our staff enough time to do that, then we'll place it back on the agenda. And then if there's any, you know, financing or others, I don't think we have to wait till the budget. I mean, if there's a super majority on the council thinks it's okay and we can find some funds available, I mean, that's what we'll do. But
start small. We did meet with Pastor Brian. He's the Rose, White, and Blue Parade over in Alameda Street, right next to the university. And he does it on a budget. And he gave us like his go-to book, like here's how you start out with nothing, you know. And he was a tremendous help, you know, on giving us like the book on it. So we could share that with you as well.
Yeah, and if there's a structure where there's sponsorships outside in the community that can do this, I mean, certainly that would be the ideal, is getting sponsorships and bringing in. So we have a motion and a second to bring it back to council in January 2019 after all the due diligence has been taken. Is there any final comments? Did you have any before we vote?
I just wanted to thank you for putting this on.
Okay. Well, let's see what the vote is first before you thank us. Don't thank us yet.
Get the Marcelli.
Motions have the Marcelli family take care of it all? Is that in the motion?
No. We'll help.
Please register your vote. Yeah. And that passes unanimously.
Yay.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is a follow-up to a written petition and potential action on Central Park Lawn Bowl Clubhouse refurbishment. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager, and Santa Clara community. This is a brief presentation regarding the Central Park Lawn Bowls Clubhouse and the request by the Lawn Bowls Club to reconsider the current project to refurbish the existing clubhouse trailer. As previously reported to Council on August 22nd of 2017, in 1983, the city funded and constructed a small one-room lawn bowls clubhouse on the south side of the lawn bowls green. In 1985, the city constructed a restroom adjacent to the clubhouse, and in 2002, the clubhouse and the restroom were removed to accommodate the construction expansion of the library and the underground parking garage. In fiscal year 2002, the city contracted with Marcy Wong to develop a schematic design of about 2,300 square foot multi-purpose clubhouse with meeting room, kitchen, restrooms, locker room, patio, and associated park maintenance equipment and storage. In 2003, due to construction bid of over $1 million, the project was not built. And in 2007, the city installed the current 720 square foot trailer on the east side of the green with ADA ramp to accommodate the club office and indoor meeting space. In 2017, the trailer was inspected and found to be in suitable condition for occupancy. The Central Park Master Plan was initiated in 2017 as well, and the Parks and Recreation Facility Condition Assessment was completed last year. In June 2018, the Council allocated, as part of the budget process, for clubhouse improvement. And in July 2018, the Council considered the written petition from Jerry Patrignani. Patrignani.
It's right behind you.
Patrignani. There we go. Knew I could do it. And directed staff to bring back a report. In August, the Central Park Master Plan guiding principles were considered and adopted by City Council. The principles articulate that as the park attempts to improve its capacity to accommodate more people in the same space, the design of new facilities and amenities should provide complementary, simultaneous uses for multiple facility user groups, as well as consider operation and maintenance criteria, stacking of new uses, upgrading access, aesthetics, parking, park infrastructure in a coherent manner. Priorities and cost at that time were raised as important considerations. So there are two primary considerations tonight. There's the lawn bowls request for the city to reconsider the refurbishment, replacement of the existing clubhouse, and to rather fund the 2004 design on the east side of the green. And the city's considerations, which are the 2017 facility condition assessment, which showed that over $25 million of building systems and $2.5 million in park site upgrades are needed for Central Park, as well as coordination with the current Central Park Master Plan update and the current clubhouse improvement budget allocation of $175,000. The funded alternative is alternative number one, is to refurbish the existing in the same location, flooring, painting, exterior improvements, HVAC, etc., or pull and replace with a new of the same. The unfunded alternatives, alternative two, at this time is about $2 million for the Santa Clara Lawn Bowls Club request. It's basically a 2,200 square foot built-in single-use facility of the 2004 design on the east side site. The Santa Clara Lawn Bowls request is not for any modular considerations. Alternative three, which is not supported by the Lawn Bowls Club, would be a new 720 square foot modular on the east site with improved access visibility and provides future flexibility for the master plan implementation. However, there's no restroom and no kitchen. Alternative four is in the $600,000 range. It's also not supported by Lawn Bowls Club. It would basically be a pull and replace 720 square foot modular on the east site or sites. It has improved access visibility, future flexibility. It also includes the restroom, plumbing, exterior enhancements. Alternative five is an unknown cost. Basically is to not proceed with rehabilitation, rather to defer the consideration to the fiscal year 2021 CIP and evaluate alongside all the other city's capital improvement needs. So what's the current funding environment? Alternative 1 is funded. Alternatives 2 through 5 are unfunded. And any allocation of new funding to Lawn Bowls Clubhouse as a project would compete with other identified priority projects. Those are listed on the screen. Just to name a few, we're doing, as you know, park rehabilitation out at Montague. It is funded, the building out there. A new one would be unfunded. Agnew Park Playground, it's for the most part funded. Fuller Street Sport Court, that is funded. But we do have playground renovations at 10 more park sites at what the current cost seems to be is around $750,000 per playground. I know that seems high, but that's what the costs seem to be coming in at. So that'd be $7.5 million. We also have Ray Gamma Dog Park upgrades, which we were working with Dillingham and Associates, and we should be doing a survey in the near future, as well as working with the dog user community and our dog park user community and finding out what those upgrades are. So that amount is unknown at this time. Then we also have the International Swim Center, the shower room repairs. We're still looking at getting the project costs on that. And then the Arbor Playground replacement, which you approved the resolution earlier tonight, which now has funding. And we're applying for a grant to match that grant funding. And then finally, the Reed and Grant Street, I didn't mention, we also have the capital project loan of $7 million that we're paying back to the CIP. So any selection of unfunded alternatives requires additional council action. And the staff's recommendation is alternative 1, to note and file the report. So this time, I think that concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Padragani, would you like to come up and talk to us about what your wishes are?
First off, I'd like to correct something. The clubhouse could never be built on the east side because you'd be facing the west. That means in the afternoon would negate using that patio because it'd be too hot. Yeah. So it'd have to be on the west side facing east. It's nice that Jim went before me. He has a nice sophisticated report, and all I have is this little report that I made.
Okay, you're good.
So I'm just going to do the best I know how here.
You'll be fine.
All right. I'm just going to start at the top. I am Jerry Patrick Nanny. I'm Vice President of the Santa Clara Lawn Bowls Club. Good evening. This is a request to ask the council to make good on a promise made to my club 15 years ago. I have no proof of what I now say, but common sense will bear me out. In the year 2003, the Central Library was remodeled, and the bowling club house that we had at that time was in the way of that work. The best I can figure is that the clubhouse was in the way of a new fence. So between a fence and the clubhouse, the fence won out. Our clubhouse was demolished. An architectural firm was hired to draw up plans for a new clubhouse. These are those plans here. This firm and architect are still in business today. I talked to the architect, Marcy Wong, and she remembers Larry Wolf, Director of Parks and Recreation, being very enthusiastic about building a new clubhouse. The plans for the remodeled library and the clubhouse were approved and funded. Unfortunately, funding for the library fell short, so the dedicated funds for our clubhouse were used to complete the library. The city, showing good intent, were expected to refund the clubhouse project. Again, this took place in 2003. So 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, nothing. In 2008, another promise was made that we would have the promised clubhouse by 2010. Well, 2010 has come and gone, as well as 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. And now we're in 2018. Will you now make good on your promise? Questions?
I have a couple of questions. So one is that we thought we were gonna be moving ahead with building a new swim center and reconfiguring all that was happening there in Central Park. And so we're in master planning process of Central Park. So one of the discussions was that building a permanent building there may not be feasible at the time because we may have to move you around the park. So I know if we were going to do anything with the central library as well. So we talked about that, and it looks like we're behind schedule now on doing something with the swim center, and it could be a few years from now that something actually happens. So in the meantime, we wanted to, for lack of a better term, put a Band-Aid of $175,000 on your existing structure there. That's, we want to make sure, first of all, it's safe, but that it looks better than it does right now, because we have this beautiful library, and then we have your building, which is the beauty's questionable on your building. And so, so my question is, it looks like a permanent building is what's preferred there. But there's a possibility that the building may be moved in the maybe near future. So is there, it looks like there is there's no interest from your group in a new portable building, although they look different now than they looked back then, and considering the one you're in right now. Do you have no interest in a building a portable building that could be moved later, that looks good with a kitchen and a restroom? Are you set on a permanent building for the property now? I'm trying to look for some flexibility that we can get you something that's nice, but that gives the flexibility of moving it if we have to.
You talk about moving, why not just move the permanent building? It could be 2 years or 10 years from now before you actually, if we don't do something now, we'll just be waiting around. So I would suggest that it could be built so that it could be moved. The original clubhouse, where it was, instead of being demolished, could have been moved right around the corner. It wasn't even that large. Instead, the city wanted something much better, apparently. I'm guessing at that. And so they just demolished our clubhouse and planned on this 2,200 square foot new clubhouse, which was fine if that's what you wanted to do, but you could have just moved the other one and we would have been satisfied. I'm guessing because that was back in 2003. I wasn't even around this club then. But that would have been a cheaper way just to move it. They were satisfied before, they'd be satisfied again. But the city, they made the decision, demolish it. We're going to give them something better. Well, we got nothing.
I don't know what was there in 2003.
There was a smaller building.
I wasn't here, but I'm wondering, can a permanent building be
Well, we've
moved?
seen downtown San Jose, they moved an entire hotel. They had to roll it from one place to another, and they did it, and it was a huge building. A permanent clubhouse could be moved.
Can I ask about that? I don't know. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Manuel Pineda, Assistant City Manager. Certainly, kind of when you're looking at moving whole buildings, you would have to look at the engineering feasibility, and as part of the design, you could look at what it would take to accomplish that. I can tell you that there's a value that has to be measured there. Typically, when buildings are being moved, is because the value of the building comparison to the cost of moving the building, there's a ratio that makes sense. For a smaller building at this size, it would really have to be explored because there would be a significant cost associated with it. In addition to that, you would have to look at, building new foundations, new plumbing, new electrical. So the cost, increase exponentially. But until we have an actual building and working through an engineer, we wouldn't know all the details, but it would not be an inexpensive cost.
So it seems to be that there is that there's no interest in a portable or a.
What would it contain? Would it contain a kitchen?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, one that had a kitchen and a restroom inside a portable building. And there's even costs in moving the portable buildings. You still have those costs as well, but they're a little bit more predictable in
That's
terms
correct.
of, in terms of a permanent building, trying to move a permanent building versus and there's some very nice looking portable buildings now. They're so much different than they were before. So I'm inclined to have the staff look at, options, and maybe your group can look at potential options for permanent portable buildings as opposed to a permanent building that may be impossible to move. But I think some flexibility is needed depending on what happens with the swim center and Central Park and the library. Not maybe in the not 1 or 2 years, but maybe more like 4 or 5 years down the line. So I think that option, along with the, I'll call it the $175,000 Band-Aid of making that building look better, to have some options that, that you were promised in the past.
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts. I'll go to the council.
You don't want to put $175,000 into that trailer.
I've
it's
seen
not
the
worth
trailer.
anything now. It's going to cost you to get rid of it. So why would you want to fix it up?
It was supposed to be just a temporary thing.
Yeah, I know.
So,
That's why I'm saying.
But it looks like our temporary is longer down the path than we originally thought. Councilmember Mahan?
Thank you. Actually, my question was similar to yours, but directed to Mr. Teixeira. As we go forward with the Central Park master planning and possibly, hopefully, rebuilding of our International Swim Center, would this current site of the lawn bowls field and the location of the clubhouse, whatever configuration that clubhouse is, would that likely stay in place, or may it have to be moved to some other area of the park?
I'll direct it as soon as I can get to, whoops, wrong one.
Next item.
Not that one.
No.
Sorry about that. So the image on the top right shows the library, the lawn bowls area, and then the image below shows the 2004 design, which actually did have it on the end of Patricia. So the consideration for lawn bowls in that area, as Gates and Associates is developing it and is shared with the community before, is lawn bowls essentially would stay in the same location if that's a desirable feature. The second thing is whether or not, and based on cost being a significant item that we shared with you, was whether or not expansion of library parking or other parking. There's 4 areas of the park where structured parking might be advisable. Not all 4 spaces or locations, but where it might be advisable, and on a flat surface with a lawn like that. This is one of the uses that we've seen on top of structured parking. So that could be a possibility. The other reason why it's located, or a lawn bowls building would be located in that area, is because it's also very close to sanitary sewer and electrical and utilities. So it makes sense to either have it there or, but on the east side or to the other side. There is shading that could be added for a patio area to address sun concerns in the afternoon. Does that answer the question, or did I miss it?
So are you saying essentially that it's likely to stay there unless there's a parking structure and then it might be moved?
If there were parking, it would make sense, because the parking structure for the library is actually right under that pathway to the right, to the south. So it makes sense to expand that area. And it also provides direct access off of Patricia directly underneath. So the likely location for lawn bowls is the same location. The location of the building will depend upon orientation and how it would be designed. If there is no structured parking, then it makes sense to put it in this location as it's illustrated.
And would a 2,000 square foot building fit there?
The design below is over 2,200 square foot, and it is designed to scale, and it shows it as Marcy Wong designed it in 2003-4. Those are actually bid plans, which came in at being higher, so approved plan set.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Neill.
Thank you. So I have a series of questions, and I'm not sure if Mr. Patrignani or Director Teixeira or who might answer. So one of my questions is, who originally built the clubhouse? And who paid for it?
The staff report has an attachment from August 2017, which gives the detail on that. It was a combination of city and federal grant funds for, I think, phase 13 of Central Park under Earl Carmichael, and we also had a contribution from the Lawn Bowls Association.
Okay. Do we know, I'm just trying to kind of assess the scope of the need here. So for one thing, and I feel your pain and, all this, but, for one thing, we have to take into consideration, in 2008, there was a horrible recession, which wiped out a lot of plans for having things done. And I think after that, the reason why we've had some money to do some of the projects that are on the list is because we finally, a couple years ago, started having park fees. Before, so we didn't have any, so I'm kind of curious if the council that in 2004, whatever, kind of agreed to that. I don't know if they ever agreed to a budget or authorized any funds towards it, because that's I think where we're trying to show a little more discipline with some of our ideas and concepts that we have to understand, yeah, we want this. It's kind of like with the parade. We all would love to see the parade back again, but if it turns out that it's going to cost a couple $100,000, well, then we have to face the reality of whether we're going to be able to do that. So some of my thinking, Mr. Patrignani, do you know how many members do you have in your club, and how many of them are Santa Clara residents?
You can look at it that way, but I kind of look at it this way. Once you build a permanent clubhouse, it's there. And generation after generation after generation will be using that clubhouse for that lawn bowling. You can't just look at it right now and try to compare dollars to people. You got to look at the long end of it. And if it's permanent, the club's going to survive a lot longer and build the membership up because they've got something to sell because we have a building now.
Well, that's one way to think of it. But I'm just saying from my perspective, I have people telling me in the community that they don't think that there's enough people who swim to justify building a new pool. So I'm just being honest with you in terms of when I have to look at, where my vote might go to prioritize funds. I understand. So some of my thinking is, it's easy to say that. So I'm just thinking in terms of the best use of facilities. So right there in Central Park, would it be feasible for what you're talking about to have a space or maybe an area in the community recreation center that you can use, and maybe the lawn bowls would fit over there, or maybe would it be better to go to Fremont Park because and put the area there and have the facilities in the senior center use. I'm just trying to think if there's a way that we can use facilities that we already have. Or maybe one of these parks that's being redone that's going to have a community room, and I know sometimes, or they have community rooms, and sometimes I hear that those community rooms aren't used all that much. I'm trying to, like I said, I'm trying to be really a good steward of
Economical?
the funds.
I don't think you can look at it this way. You're talking about people that have worked all their lives, because just about 90% or possibly more are retired people. They're in their last days. I'm in my last days too.
Me too.
Think of the people that are there. They've worked all their lives, and now they found something. They like the socializing. They like the game. They like where they are. All we got to do is just give them a better house, a clubhouse, and I think that's the way we ought to be looking at it. I mean, if the towers were taken down and only one fireman, let's say, was killed, who's going to say, well, let's not honor him? Why spend the money? It's only one person. But that one person gave up their life for trying to save other lives.
Well, I think that's, I respect what you're trying to do, but that argument is, is a little stretched. But, so I'm trying to find something to help you out here, but I'm also looking at the list of projects that the Director of Parks and Recreation has, and based on our needs assessment, and that's why I asked you, like, how many people are actively using this, and I hear what you're saying, but, generationally, I don't know.
Okay, well, why don't you tell me how much a person is worth, and I'll tell you in relation to that how many members there are. Eventually, you already know. I know that how many members are there, and I see what you're also trying to say. Well, there's only a few people there. Why should we spend $1 million? But it's not. The money is not. You can't buy people like that. You can't say, well, we're only going to spend so many dollars per person.
Well, I know, but I also have to take into consideration the 120,000 people around this city who are expressing needs. We have a lot of needs that are competing for the same funds. So I'm trying to think if there's a way to best use the city's funds for your members and to provide a good experience, but also considering that we've got playgrounds all over the city that do not meet the federal consumer protection standards. And I have to look at the whole city, not, and I understand you are very eloquently advocating for your group, and I understand that, and I'm very sympathetic, and I thank you for coming. So I'm just trying to get to something, and, and I know it's not popular, but I have to take the broader look here. And that's why I'm saying, that to me, saying I want a permanent building, for us to spend $1 million for perhaps a group of 25 people, like I said, when I have people out there saying that when there's probably, a couple thousand people who use the swim center, and yet I'm getting from people, they don't feel that that's enough to justify spending money to build a new pool. So, you have to look, that's where I'm coming from. I have to look at what's the best way to use a limited source of money to best meet the needs of 120,000 people.
I understand what you're saying, but you're not really looking at it in the right light. It's not like the number of people that are there now are going to be there forever. There's going to be people down the road. They're going to be using this. It's a permanent structure. And so there'll be new people all the time.
Okay.
I don't know, if you can give me a dollar figure that you think a person's worth, maybe I can tell you out loud here. And like
every
I said,
person is priceless. Every person is priceless, but buildings are.
Good answer. Good answer. Thank you. Councilmember Colstead.
Thanks, Mayor. It does not surprise me that Councilmember O'Neill takes a very practical and pragmatic approach to solving problems. I recall when Councilmember Corner was on this council, he asked the exact same question of the Lawn Bowling League, and he got an answer, and I recall it was about 40 members, and most of them lived in other cities around the county. And that's why he told me he couldn't support investing funds in a clubhouse for this small club. There was another parks director at one time that told me they had looked at maybe relocating it just exactly where you said, Fremont Park, because the senior center was there. And they changed their mind on that after I realize the Parks Director has coached me up on this a little bit. They're constantly evaluating the needs of all the people in the city and trying to do the best for the most. And the list that we saw of all those projects that are needing improvement or repair is pretty overwhelming. And I don't think we're going to get a straight answer on how many people belong to this activity, but I'm prepared to recommend staff recommendation, option 1, because it's funded and we can fix the house up. I think we have to look exactly what you said, justifying how much money we invest in different activities predicated on the need of the community. So I'll make the staff recommendation as a motion.
I'll second that, and thank you. So what I want to say is, you know, with the budget, perhaps rather than if the club is really opposed to fixing up that little trailer, which I can get, you know, perhaps that money can be, like I said, you know, invested in some other one of our facilities, that existing facilities, to provide that area where you want to have to socialize with your friends and the members of the club without having to spend a couple $1 million to build a new building. So, I mean, I'd be flexible, you know, and I don't know what Mr. Teixeira, if that's just totally not feasible to do, but I mean, instead of tying them, if they really don't want that trailer fixed up, which I can understand, you know, whether, like I said, whether the funding from that the council approved could be put into, you know, perhaps, you know, the building at Maywood Park or the building at Bowers Park or something that I think are nice buildings, or there's going to be there's a building at Montague Park, you know, that could be a nice gathering area.
It'll cost about $500,000 just to put the lawn in. Just for that, San Jose just spent $1.2 million to go from grass to carpet. And I just wanted to give you an idea that it's not cheap to put in one of those the lawn by itself. Forget about the clubhouse, but you're gonna put in at least $500,000 just to put in a decent lawn bowling rink.
And just to be clear, I'm at alternative 1 that was in the staff report.
Right, thank you. Councilmember Mahan.
Thank you. I would like us to consider, I think it was a direction that the mayor was trying to bring forth as well. If we consider these, I mean, maybe we should think of it as a manufactured building rather than just a portable building or another bigger trailer, because I think that might be a financially feasible solution to getting a clubhouse that's decent, that serves your purposes, that would have a kitchen, would have a bathroom, and would have a much lower cost, rather than, you know, kind of feeling like spending even $175,000 is, you know, giving good money after bad, because that trailer is so old and in such poor shape. You know, that would be a really huge Band-Aid and maybe not worth the cost, but perhaps an investment of a, you know, more reasonable cost of, you know, the $600,000 for a modular permanent, in the fact that it's going to be located at that location permanently, and just think of it as a prefab building or a manufactured building, might suffice, and might suffice for the long term. I mean, I feel like we do owe the lawn bowlers to fulfill our promise in some way. I do feel that having lawn bowling in Santa Clara is a benefit to our community. I know a lot of community members participate and have in the past and will in the future, and I know you have tournaments that bring other people here. So my preference would be to direct staff to work with the lawn bowlers to explore this modular concept as a new and permanently located clubhouse for you, rather than, you know, having to spend $2 million that we really don't have at the moment. And I think that would be a fairly reasonable permanent solution. So that would be my preference.
And,
Yeah, thank
Assistant
you.
City Attorney, City Manager. I was seeing if the City Attorney was ready, yeah. I'm good. Kidding, thank you.
Thank you.
Just checking, thank you.
That's okay. So a couple of items. If the council does want to consider that option, the Director Teixeira did mention that option would be about $600,000. So of course, we would have to find about another $425,000 or so. So I would recommend that the council send staff back to look at where that money could come from. And certainly we don't have those funds sitting in a bank somewhere. So either have to be done through some sort of loan, or some current projects that are funded will have to be defunded to prioritize this project instead. So if the council does want to consider the modular option at $600,000, I would recommend to send us back and figure out what the options might be, so we can let the council know what the options are to funding the project, whether it's a loan or whether we have to defund a different project that's already funded. The other part of it is, I think, through my meetings with the Lawn Bowls Club and as well as Jim's meeting, it's been pretty clear that a modular option was not an alternative they wanted. So I think we would like to get some agreement that a modular option is something that the Lawn Bowls Club would be interested in. And in combination of those two things, we could come back to council at a later date if that's something the council would like to consider.
Okay, thank you. I had an opportunity to really take a good look at that modular building during the Arts and Wine Festival, and there was actually a lot of people that were lawn bowling during the Arts and Wine Festival, because it is kind of a sport that's very interesting. And I might want to think twice of putting that $175,000 into that building. It's pretty dilapidated, although it's safe for use, but it's not something. And if we could look at, I would like to look at options and have the lawn bowls also look at options, as opposed to a permanent $2 million or more structure. Look at options. And then I'm wondering, is there any, I know that particular building that you're in, I don't know, is it 1960s, 70s? It looks like the 50s. I don't know when it was. Do we know how old that is?
I don't, but it's too old. I believe it was a 2005 that we got. It was a Cushman trailer.
Oh, it was a construction trailer.
What would be the cost of duplicating that only brand new?
Well, that's kind of what
I don't want that, but I'm just saying what would, because I'm going to compare that to the $175,000.
Yeah, we'd like to, I don't know if the vote would pass, but I would like to see what the options are in terms of that.
Yeah.
And then another option is, does anyone have, a newer building they'd like to donate to the city? I mean, those are options too. Sometimes the school district will have some buildings, or, there's a portable class, there's something somewhere that we may be able to get that would work better for this as well. There might be some options for us, but I would not like to see putting $175,000 into that if we don't have to.
So to answer the question directly, a pull and replace of the existing is about the same amount. I think a new trailer, just the base model is 138, and then skirting, flashing, ramp, etc., site improvement around it brings it up to about the 175. So just a pull and replace of the existing. What you see new, 720 square foot is about 175. 138 pull and replace of existing, plus the site improvements brings up to 175.
So we could replace what's there for 175? Is that what you're saying? A construction trailer like that at 720 square feet?
Correct. And then on the modular type, not to get into too much discussion here, but what we have found was when you're looking at the modulars, you mentioned, school type. What we were looking at, there's the industrial side, and then there's also the residential side. So based on permitting and those sorts of things, and the types of foundation strapping, how to fix it, that's what you find in those other two proposals, one with the restroom and kitchen and one without. And so the utility connections, really, if you site it close enough, that can happen.
Okay.
As part of our return
City
back,
Manager.
I want to do a little bit more due diligence about what the director just said, because the way the analysis for the report wrote up the renovation for the existing clubhouse that was included in the budget was at $175,000, and that was assuming the structure and just rehabbing it. And so I want to understand the analysis behind it being a new modular at the same cost, and just get back to the council so that we make sure that we are on record with proper information.
Right, because if it was 175 to replace, that's different than 175 to put, paint and skirting around it. Even for the 175, we've already budgeted that, so do we even, can we just ask for more information before we, because that's already been budgeted.
There is $175,000 in the budget, which the council adopted. If there is an interest in increasing the budget, then there's trade-offs in terms of unfunded projects, or unless you want to pull the dollars from the discretionary fund or look at funding strategies that we would want to bring back to you for options, so that the decision is made with understanding the relationship between existing projects and the discretionary fund.
Hearing a very important word, grants.
I'm talking about the wrong fund, the budget stabilization fund, not the discretionary fund.
We can go in the Stadium Authority
I know,
discretionary fund and pay for the lawn
agencies.
bowling. Okay, yeah. Oh my gosh, okay. Thank you. So council, what would you, there's a motion on and a second on the floor.
I'd withdraw that motion and make a motion that we refer it back to staff and see if they can come up with some other options for y'all to consider.
Okay. Motion second for other options. All right, Councilmember Mahan, you have more comments? Okay. So
I just want to be clear on the motion, that is it within the framework of the modular, coming back with options for the I got it. Okay. That's fine.
Is there any member of the public like to speak on this? Okay, so all that discussion, we're referring it back to staff. All right. Motion and a second to refer it back, to bring back more information. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll get back to you. All right, next we have an update on the Prune Ridge Avenue corridor improvements. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. My name is Michael Liu. I'm the Assistant Director and City Engineer for the Department of Public Works, and it's my pleasure to be here tonight to give you an update on the Prune Ridge Avenue corridor improvements. For those that aren't familiar with me, I'm a new employee with the city. I started in May and spent the last 20 years in San Jose working on land development. So I'm very happy to be here. It's a very welcoming place, and
happy to have you here.
It's been a great 5 months. So tonight we're going to go through a quick overview. We're going to have an overview of what's been going on Prune Ridge Avenue for quite some time. I'm going to give you some information on roadway characteristics. We'll discuss Prune Ridge Avenue as a bicycle corridor. In 2012, there's a big significant project on Prune Ridge Avenue west of Pomeroy. And then currently there are 2 capital improvement projects that the city's engaged in to provide some additional improvements for the residents. And last but not least, we'll go through some options for future corridor studies that are upcoming. So with this slide, I'd like to give you some information on kind of the roadway characteristics. It's a 3-mile east-west minor arterial street in South Santa Clara, 2 to 4 lane roadway. And we'll get into that in the latter part of the presentation. And what's important is that there are 2 neighboring city connections, West Heading Street in San Jose and then the Apple campus in Cupertino, as shown on the map. What's also very important is that Prune Ridge Avenue is considered a city and cross-county bicycle corridor. So in planning out the city and and planning out bicycle paths and whatnot, these are kind of the guiding documents that led staff to implementing bike corridors. Of course, you have the general plan, you have the San Tomas Aquino master plan, and of course the countywide bicycle plan and our own bicycle plan that is being updated currently. So with this map, I wanted to kind of orient the council and the general public. What you can see is the Apple campus on the far left, Prune Ridge Avenue on the bottom, and then you can see kind of the major intersections that provide context to the corridor. I'm going to go through each one real quick here and then kind of give you a little more detail as we get further along. So in 2012, the corridor along Prune Ridge from the western city limit to Pomeroy was modified to 2 lanes from 4 lanes and add bicycle facilities. The next, and then we're also going to discuss the bicycle lane improvements at Lawrence, which is currently in our city's capital improvement program. We have a new traffic signal at Cronin that is being constructed as we speak, and is to some degree the reason that I'm giving you this presentation tonight, because of a written petition from May of this year. And then last but not least, we have the remaining corridor that is the subject of future study. So in 2012, Prune Ridge Avenue, once again from Pomeroy to the western city limit, was converted from 4 lanes to 2 lanes to accommodate bicycle lanes. We did retain on-street parking, and we did install a center left turn lane. There was a community process where the community got to weigh in on options, and there's been 2 post-studies that were completed in 2012, 2013, that gave feedback to the city and then correspondingly to council in terms of how that project's been going. It's very important to note that there's very mixed reviews in terms of the changes that were made. There are those that are against it and those that were very happy with the changes that they've seen so far. But what's also important to know is that through that community process, things got refined and minor striping changes and signage was added over the years. So here's a graphic that shows you the roadway reallocation. It's a picture on the right, but what you can see on the top left is parking on both sides, 6-foot bike lanes, 2 travel lanes, 1 in each direction, and then the center 2-way left turn lane. So the next project is one that's being worked on currently. This was the subject of a written petition from 2017. And then in July of that same year, council approved the conceptual design. This is basically adding bicycle lanes right within the proximity of Lawrence Expressway to basically close a gap in bicycle lanes that were not accomplished in the original 2012 project. So we're looking to complete design by mid-2019 and have construction complete by the end of 2019. What's very important, and I'll show you this in this graphic here, is the current configuration. You can see there's a gap in bicycle lanes as you're from Harvard on Prune Ridge Avenue. And then this is the area that we're looking to improve. There is right-of-way that is, or property that needs to be acquired, which is part of one of the main reasons that this was not included originally. The next project is a new traffic signal at Cronin. In January 2017, council approved the new traffic signal with staff completing a warrant study. In May 22nd, 2018, a written petition was submitted to the council regarding the traffic signal, and this is once again the reason we're here today. It is important to note that in August 21st, the council did award construction. Construction has started. We're looking to complete this project by the end of the year. So here is once again, an aerial that kind of should orient you. You have Prune Ridge, east-west, Radcliffe on the right, and then Maywood Park on the southwest corner with Cronin down the center. Cronin is stop controlled on Cronin itself, and there's a crosswalk on the west side today. So with this project, we're looking to move the crosswalk to the east side, and then on top of that, we're planning to install facilities so we can have future interconnection between this signal and the signals both on the east and west of this location. And last but not least, we have the future corridor study. So in 2007, at the end of 2017, the city of San Jose completed its bicycle lane improvement project in along West Heading Street, and converted a 4-lane facility similar to what we had done back in 2012 to a 2-lane facility with bicycle lanes on both sides. Since that time, there's been increased interest by the bicycle community, residents, and so forth, in terms of Santa Clara potentially moving forward with the remaining portion from Pomeroy to Winchester. It is a pretty significant corridor in terms of size, 2.2 miles. It is similar to the earlier corridor fronted on both sides by single-family residential, with some mixed use as you get towards closer to Winchester. Once again, very much a passionate issue by the community in terms of for and against. We get those emails quite often and respond that this is a concept that we're interested in studying, and we're actually looking for grant funding. So this is an unfunded project at this point, but we are looking to have a draft scope to add bicycle facilities. We do want to at some point complete the connection, if at all feasible. This would include data collection, traffic volumes, queuing, level of service, significant community outreach. We know this is an issue that a lot of residents and commuters and so forth want to weigh in on. And we do want to have quite a few alternatives to take a look at. We're looking for potential grant funding, regional grant funding in the spring of 2019. These are the 3 grants we're looking to pursue. There may be a 4th if all goes well. And the timeline that we're looking at is roughly spring 2019 for grant applications, fall to have the grants awarded. But once again, I cannot stress enough the need for data to evaluate options, to have alternatives for the community to and staff and the council and BPAC to vet, and then have robust community outreach, and then once again return to BPAC and council for feedback. So that concludes staff's presentation or my presentation. I'm available for questions.
Okay, let's see, questions of the council. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you. I live over here. This is a nightmare. It is a pass-through. Everybody drives down Prune Ridge, they speed, they make people crazy. So when you have bike lane here, and in the middle, all these people get smashed. So if we're gonna do contiguous bike lanes, that would be the smartest thing, whatever happened to these people over there. They're tired of how they're treated, and that's why when you said robust community engagement, that's an understatement. These people are inundated by, I don't know if we were told that San Jose was gonna start this at Winchester and go into the bike lane, but we had a grant funding to do from Pomeroy to Lawrence Expressway, which made everybody crazy because the rest of the road was not in that form. And I know Teresa O'Neill's gonna say this, and she's probably gonna kill me, because in the beginning I was against it, but now, if you're gonna have bike lanes on 2 ends, you have to take care of the middle. And it has just caused so many accidents that they're not, I don't wanna say they're not reported, but there is a lot of issues where they're fender benders, people cannot get out, and I really applaud moving the crosswalk to the other side because you can't see it. There are redwood trees there that are blinding to people. If people park on Prune Ridge where Maywood is, you can't see anything, and there's kids everywhere. We have intersections where we have the patrols, the little kid patrols. It's scary. And because people will zoom through there. Because once they get past Pomeroy, they hit that, and as soon as they get to Cronin, it's like zoom. And it's dangerous. That intersection is so dangerous. But thank you for this. I am very happy. I hope that we can find the funding to take care of the bicycle lanes and go from the 4 to the 2 and have lanes in there, because it's a mess. It's really bad. And it won't be a drive-through, I don't think, as much, because they won't be able to do that. Because once they hit Winchester and they hit San Jose, they have to all veer in, and it has really slowed down the traffic on the San Jose side. Santa Clara side, they just go, they zoom. And I know Lisa's sister lives right on Prune Ridge on that thoroughfare. I know people that live on Prune Ridge that are very upset. They can't even get out their driveways, let alone, within a certain time. So thank you for this. Thank you for coming from San Jose. I know you're the new kid on the block, but I'm glad that you're gonna at least address this issue. It's been a nightmare ever since we did that first section. But I think going forward, you might make a lot of people happy because it won't look as they drive through, pass through. They're probably gonna flow onto Benton now, and that's gonna be another issue, and Homestead. We are a drive-through city. They go in that direction to get to work. So I'm hoping that we're going to be able to make people happy on Prune Ridge, and good luck.
Councilmember O'Neill.
I just want to say thank you, Councilmember Davis, that you said that. I'm not saying anything. I get all those emails. So thank you for that. But so I think we'll, I'm sure there will continue to be robust conversation. And at the end, or maybe I'll say it now, I was going to give some information at the end, but there is a report that the annual kind of transportation monitoring program report from VTA, and it goes in and it looks at all kinds of things, and I'll say more about it at the end. And one of the things, though, that it looks at and I'm sure members of the community would find it interesting, it talks about road share, and it talks about all the current estimates about how people are getting to where they're going. And in light of all of the traffic problems and the climate problems that we have, we're going to have to do something differently right now. Right now, what we're doing isn't really working in terms of transportation. And we, as Director Rockema talked about this being Public Power Week, I mean, the electric utilities of this country are doing a great job of cleaning up their act and reducing their carbon. But so the biggest area that we have just begun to touch is transportation. So 40% approximately of the carbon that this country is producing is coming from transportation. And so we're going to have to find other ways to do things and reduce the congestion so you don't have, getting people more into different types of, all kinds of different transit modes. So, the fun is just beginning, but I think as we see every day the cataclysmic experiences we're beginning to have with as the impacts of climate, we're going to have to changing our climate. We're going to have to do something. So let's have that conversation. Maybe there are other things we can do to help people. We have, as Santa Clara participated with San Jose and Cupertino and VTA, we were applying for an MTC grant. We're looking to think about doing something really innovative down Stevens Creek Boulevard, which maybe would relieve some of the pressure on Prune Ridge, because I agree, I think it's a parallel corridor to Stevens Creek and to 280 from all the way across the valley. So maybe we'll get the money to dig that Hyperloop tunnel underneath Stevens Creek that, that's been under discussion. So I just encourage, all of us to be very creative and to have some open minds, and thank you, Councilmember Davis.
Councilmember Kolstad.
Thanks, Mayor. That was a good report, and I'd like to make a motion we adopt the staff recommendation, which is to simply note and file the report.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. I have some thank you very much. I have some community members that would like to speak. The first is Kurt Vartan, followed by Betsy Megas. And then anyone else who'd like to speak, you can line up after that. Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's great to see kind of unanimous support for this kind of reconfiguration. I've heard in the past, I've heard from some neighbors that they are kind of seeing, well, we need more capacity because there's so many cars going down. And I think it's counterintuitive to think that, well, the less roadway you have, the less cars you're going to have, and it'll start to narrow things out and push those cars onto the major arteries like Stevens Creek or maybe some of the other ones. I would ask that, and I'm not sure if this gentleman was in San Jose when he presented my neighborhood group, about the coloring of the stripes that happen when you do that. I know that'll probably come out during your study, but I hope that you encourage using that green paint all the way down to really highlight that, because people don't often see where the bikes are and where you should go and things like that. And I'm glad you guys really see that kind of no man's land in between, where it's 2 lanes to 4 lanes. It's chaos, and it's a speedway. So thank you. Great.
Thank you. Betsy?
So there's, as always, there's been a lot of renewed interest and energy around as every time the bike lanes come up on Prune Ridge. I'm here tonight, as usual, by bicycle. For me, my bicycle is not alternative transportation, it is just transportation. And the bicycle network I use in the city for transportation is currently pretty spotty and difficult to use. It doesn't continue across city lines, and in some cases it doesn't even continue across our city. In terms of meeting goals and requirements for vehicle miles traveled, and I noticed the words level of service in that presentation. I wonder if we are starting also to study vehicle miles traveled, because we are supposed to do that. And for our climate action plan, I'm glad to see that the question has not around whether we will complete this key city and county bicycle corridor, but when and how. I believe there's some pavement maintenance going on Prune Ridge about now. Had that pavement maintenance been funded under 2016 County Measure B, it would have come with a complete streets requirement, because it makes economic and logistical sense when doing pavement maintenance to also add the bike lanes. I didn't find any news of an outcome tonight, but last I heard, the hearing to release the funding for Measure B from the lawsuit was scheduled for today. So if if that happened, and since funding is part of the question, I certainly encourage you to check whether that might be an opportunity for this project. And I'm very glad to see this moving again. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone like to speak, please come forward. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, and good evening to all of you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear and see a person looking at this project. I'm a neighbor of Council Member Debbie Davis. I was here last time talking about the intersection. So I'm the homeowner of the home right at the intersection. It is actually, what we are seeing is a nightmare. I was almost killed last night when I was crossing Prune Ridge, so there's some effort that is good. What's happening is I have friends who prefer to travel via Prune Ridge because it is the fastest way to get from San Tomas to Lawrence, or from Lawrence to San Tomas, because there's this 4-lane which you can rush through compared to that. So they're avoiding Stevens Creek and Homestead, which are more commercial streets, to use Prune Ridge instead because it's faster, and hence the nightmare that we are seeing. I think when you look at this evaluation, particularly the people here who are looking at that project, I want them to keep in mind that there is the Eisenhower School, there is a kid play area right at the intersection of Cronin and Prune Ridge, and hence I would support any effort to reduce traffic on this particular street, to make people safer there. And it is a residential street. It's not a commercial street like Stevens Creek or Homestead, where there are other commercial things, at least between San Tomas and Lawrence. So keeping that in mind, this is a residential area. The effort should be how we reduce that. And I support having bike lanes, although I'm not a biker myself. So thank you so much for looking into this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak? Please come forward. All right. I just want to make some comments. It's not quite unanimous up here on certain things. I also live in District 6, your district, and I travel Prune Ridge Avenue every day to take my son to school. And it's a nightmare especially ever since Apple opened. and people are using that as a major commuter thoroughfare. I have to say, people are still in their cars. They're in their cars, and I rarely, if ever, see a bicycle in the bike lanes. I'm lucky if I see one, and I purposely look for them every day when I'm on Prune Ridge. So I don't think it's caught on yet that people need to get out of their cars and get on their bikes. I'm not seeing it at all. But the traffic on Prune Ridge is just backed up from Lawrence Expressway at the peak hour all the way past Saratoga Avenue. It's all the way back. It takes twice as long to get through. It's a mess. It's just a mess. And I hear so much from people that live off the Prune Ridge corridor that if we road diet it all the way, it'd be impossible just to get out. It's going to take twice as long to get through. So I know that what we're trying to do is trying to make things better, traffic less. They're just going to go on other streets. They're going to go on Forbes. They're going to go on Santa Tomas Expressway. I mean, now Stevens Creek. They're going to go down Homestead and Benton. I mean, they're going to get there some other way through all the neighborhoods. They're going to do it. But the fact that we don't have a good alternative transportation plan for anywhere, I don't see it coming down Stevens Creek or anywhere. And we're trying to tell people you've got to get out of your cars and get on your bike. It doesn't work for me when I take my son to school and I'm working and going all over. It doesn't work for some people. But you know, I know we have to do better and think better, but I don't think this is going to be a solution to the problem there. And there is, when you talk about, we're not going to be there. People that live in that area are not going to be throwing a parade for us if we road diet, unlike Councilmember Davis thinks, all the way down Prune Ridge. I hear the other side a lot. So I look forward to us getting the grant money to do the study and the community outreach, because I don't actually remember, although I may not have been on the council at the time, the robust community outreach for the first road diet from Pomeroy to Lawrence Expressway. I don't remember that. So I hope that next time, if we're going to do this in terms of put it out for the community, that we really do robust community outreach in terms of what does our community want for that large section of Stevens Creek. And maybe by then we might have a Hyperloop coming down. I thought it was above ground, not underground, coming down Stevens Creek Boulevard, which would be extremely helpful for us. So we're note and filing this. I'm just saying there's another side to the story that I think we'll hear a lot when we start to outreach for this. Okay, Councilmember Mahan.
I was just going to say that, yes, I agree. There is a whole nother side, and that's the side that I've been hearing from almost exclusively. If you look at our emails, our packet that we had on our agenda packet. In fact, what I also hear is that people want to restore the 4 lanes from Pomeroy going west to Lawrence Expressway, that when it went to 2 lanes, it's caused so many problems in that area, especially coming off Lawrence Expressway onto Prune Ridge. Prune Ridge is really a major artery, and you know, to restrict it to 2 lanes seems to be very counterintuitive if you're trying to get traffic to flow through the city, especially with the Apple campus and all of the employees that are going to be traveling to Apple. And it's one of the few streets that go to Apple and ends there, and it doesn't go through any longer. So I think if you're really concerned about moving traffic through, it needs to be 4 lanes all the way to Lawrence Expressway. It should be restored that way. And there are traffic calming things that can be done, like additional lights that can calm the traffic. But restricting the traffic would not seem to me to be the answer. And it's certainly not what the majority of residents that are mostly impacted by this proposal, it's not what they want.
Vice Mayor Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add that we did receive several emails from residents proposing 4 lanes as well. And looking at the roadway allocation on slide 11, where it's there's two 12-foot travel lanes and a 6-foot bike lane, and the parking on each side of the road is about 8 feet. And I mean, it's not quite as much as the 12-foot travel lane, but if it were possible to look at that as well, I agree. I mean, Prune Ridge has become a heavily traveled road. Even I remember back in 2016 when we were walking in that area, watching people trying to get in and out of their driveways was, you could tell that it was definitely a hassle. And so, you know, if you're going to be exploring, looking at options, maybe look at that one as well, and also get community feedback as well, since we did receive a couple of emails with the same suggestion.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I see no other comments. We have a motion and a second to note and file. Lights on the motion. Please register your vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. And thank you for the report, Michael. Next, we have action on the procurement strategy for the management of the Convention Center and Convention Visitors Bureau.
So I just want to introduce the item before I hand it off to our new procurement manager, Mark Giovanetti. So let's see, I'm trying to... had the wrong clicker. So for purposes of today's agenda, I wanted to go through a little bit of the background, as well as what you'll hear today is a presentation on the procurement strategy for the management and operations of the Convention Center, as well as the Convention and Visitors Bureau services. We'll also introduce a feature that we'd like for the council to consider adding to this procurement process, which are integrity and conflict of interest guidelines. So just by way of background, as was already discussed on September 18th, the council heard the audit findings. For purposes of moving forward this procurement strategy, the audit presented several pieces of information that our existing contract is missing, as well as internal operational improvements that staff needed to put into place so that we can support the management of these operations. On September 18th, the City Council also directed the city staff to issue a 180-day termination notice to the Chamber, which we have done, as well as develop and bring back a procurement strategy for the contract award to manage the Convention Center and related sales and marketing services. So before I get started, I just wanted to make a little bit of comments about our internal expertise and skill. I know there's been some criticism or recent publications around our procurement strengths and weaknesses, but I have to start by just saying that we are very fortunate to have in-house experts in procurement and contract management. The recent hires of both Walter Rossman and Mark Giovanetti has put in place industry leaders that have led the nation's largest cities on contracts and procurements within multi-billion-dollar budgets, capital projects, including work in arenas, tourism, and some of the other nation's largest contracts and procurements. And they've done this through the nation's largest cities without problems and maintaining the highest level of integrity. I also want to add that as part of their work, and when we were all in San Jose, a couple of us were on the team, including Brian and myself, we put in place, we developed integrity processes for procurements that have been used for over a decade by the City of San Jose and also adopted by other municipalities as part of a complete procurement process that helps guard against conflict of interest, government corruption, or undue influence in the political process towards selection of an award of contract. So I say that so that it stands very clear that we have in-house experts who certainly know this business and have set the trend in terms of procurement. Your city core team is the city manager's office, the finance department, and the city attorney's office. And with that, I will invite Mark Giovanetti to come up and make the procurement strategy presentation.
Thank you, and we're sorry for the lateness of the hour here.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to be here. Before we get into best practices and process integrity, I think it's important not to lose sight that our objective here with this RFP is to seek quality proposals from qualified vendors that address the city's stated goals, objectives, and desired outcomes. In doing so, we want to conduct a process that's transparent, that treats all of the respondents equally, and that encourages and stimulates as much competition as reasonably possible. So on the first bullet, you see there, a concern was raised that there may not be a high number of vendors that are qualified to submit proposals for both CVB and convention center management operations. So to address that, we're allowing proposals that address both operations as well as proposals that address convention center management operations only. The city, once we evaluate the proposals, we're going to recommend a course of action. Staff will recommend a course of action at that point. So on the last bullet, the proposers will be asked to propose a transition plan. And that transition plan, they will be required to address the workers' retention ordinance, which my understanding of that ordinance is that certain employees in certain industries, like the food service industry, are required to maintain their positions, their jobs for 90 days. And then after that, as part of the transition, if they're recommending staff reductions, they're going to have to honor, I believe, a seniority system for those reductions. Do I swipe like the Kindle? There we go.
There you go.
Went too far. Let's see. There we go. So staff is recommending an initial base term of 5 years with 2 5-year options to extend or renew the agreement at the sole discretion of the city. So if all option years are exercised, this has the potential to be a 15-year agreement. The rest of the outcomes that you see there, those were pulled from the audit report. I think it's key to note that any well-constructed RFP, we will state what our outcomes are, desired outcomes, our goals, our objectives, and then we're going to stop short at giving them tips on how to accomplish what we're asking for. A well-constructed RFP leaves it open. We're encouraging diverse proposals from the industry. We want to evaluate their expertise. What are they recommending as best practices? So the best practices that we're recommending we introduce for this RFP, they are going to be further recommended as part of a more encompassing set of purchasing reforms that I plan on bringing forward and recommending to council in the January timeframe. The first, and I think one of the most important things we're going to implement for this RFP is we're going to automate the process using an e-procurement tool called BidSync. So BidSync, it's a web-based tool that manages the beginning to end RFP process. It facilitates the management of the process. It's a push system, so when we release the RFP on the system, it is going to automatically notify all vendors registered on the system whose profile when they registered meets the profile of this RFP. All questions get posted on the system, so it's a portal. All questions will anonymously get posted on the system by the respondents. The city will respond to all the questions on the system. Those answers serve as an automatic addenda to the RFP if, in fact, they change the original requirements. It's a wonderful, leaves a wonderful audit trail. So all of the proposers, when they receive the notification, we'll get reports who was notified. We'll find out when they viewed it, when they downloaded it, when they downloaded it, viewed and downloaded addenda, so on and so forth. So it's a very powerful tool. We'll issue the notice of intent of award on the system as well. The next 2 bullets, evaluation criteria and the 2-phase process, there's a separate slide for that. So we'll get to those in a moment. We're recommending incorporating, or reserving the option to incorporate a best and final offer process. And a lot of people hear that and think that that's just to get the price down. That's really to clarify any issues that are outstanding as a result of the process. So for example, the oral presentations, something may have been said by one of the proposers. People heard it differently. It's a chance to memorialize and make sure that what we heard, what staff heard, is what they're going to do and they're committing to do it. We're recommending incorporating a 10-day protest process, and that's a little bit misleading. That is 10 days to file a protest once we issue the notice of intended award. So we issued the notice of intended award. Here's what we evaluated. Here's the scores. Here's who we're recommending. They have 10 days to file a protest. I receive the protest, and then I will investigate. I'll involve the attorney's office, any other staff I need to involve, and I'll issue a written determination. And it's a powerful tool to implement as well, because it avoids, to a large degree, the council getting blindsided by a vendor showing up when staff comes forward with a recommendation, making claims that the process wasn't fair. This gives the vendor an opportunity to vet their concerns, us to respond, council to have all that information when we do bring forward a recommendation. And then there's a 7-member evaluation team that we're suggesting, and again, there's another slide on that. So for the evaluation, we're recommending a 2-phase process. And in phase 1, that's when all the proposals that are originally submitted will be evaluated. And we're recommending the evaluation criteria that you see there at those weights. So not only are we recommending criteria, we're recommending the relative importance of each criteria. So as important as the experience of the firm are the experience of the team that they're proposing. And we may very well write the names of key individuals into the final contract to make sure that the team that they bring before us during the oral presentations, key members, is the team that we get. The second phase, so the highest scoring proposals, the finalists, if you will, they'll be invited to submit financial proposals. We're not interested in financial proposals from lower scoring respondents. So we'll ask for financial proposals, and at that time, they'll also be invited to participate in oral presentations. So then 100% of the final recommendation will be based on the financial proposals and the oral presentations. So we're looking for oral presentations and financial proposals from the best of the best. The procurement timeline, and these, I want to emphasize, are just key dates. There's lots of things that happen in between, but the RFP will be released on the BidSync system October 17th. And I failed to mention that we brought the BidSync system up today, so up to date, we tested it, it's ready to use. The proposals are due December the 3rd, and then negotiations conclude, notice of intended award in February the 4th, and then we'll bring a recommendation forward to council on March the 5th. So it's an aggressive, very aggressive, perfect storm timeline. It cuts right through the holiday season. People aren't as available. Everything kind of slows down on the staff side as well as in the vendor community. We may very well have to anticipate getting a request from the proposer to ask for requesting more time. And then we'll have to evaluate that. Do we give them more time and hopefully get better proposals, or do we stick to the timeline and maybe sacrifice quality? So as mentioned earlier, there's a 7-member evaluation team that's recommended. If we can't round up 7 members, it would likely be 5. There's no magic number. 7 is probably the high end. 5 is a solid number as well. We just want it to be an odd number of proposers for tie breaks and things of that nature. You can see there from outside the city, industry expertise who we're recommending. And then we'll use the consulting firm of JLL to provide industry expertise to the evaluation team for their consideration when they score various aspects of the proposals. So process integrity guidelines. Deanna mentioned earlier they were incorporated in San Jose. they are considered some form of process integrity, stated process integrity guidelines for large formal procurements. They are recommended as a best practice by the National Purchasing Institute. So various cities have them. They vary from city to city. So we'll talk or discuss this evening about some of the process integrity guidelines that we're recommending for this RFP and quite possibly for future formal solicitations that we do here at the city. So one of the objectives, if you jump down to the last bullet there, is to remove political influence and protect against conflict of interest in the process and contract award. They also apply to staff, and they apply to the respondents as well. There's a lot of words on this slide. I'm not going to read them all, but I just want to pull out the key elements here. So the process integrity guidelines, they establish a communications protocol, a code of conduct for RFP respondents. They address confidentiality and how to ensure that the process is conducted in a confidential manner, as well as establish a process for determining whether or not there may be any conflicts of interest from key staff members. And those are staff members that develop the specifications, typically, as well as staff members and outside evaluators, staff members that evaluate and the outside expertise that we're going to bring in to do the evaluation as well. So prior to the issuance of the RFP, so prior to October the 17th per our timeline, communications, individual communications are allowed. Vendors can approach you, interested parties can approach you, and there can be discussions regarding what you know or what you want to disclose or discuss about the RFP. And really it's about, you know, the city, what we're looking for, really the RFP. After October 17th, once the RFP is issued, I'll hearken back, I'll date myself. If you remember the TV show Get Smart, when Max would have a conversation with the chief and he wanted to ensure confidentiality, he would demand the cone of silence. So once the RFP is issued, the cone of silence descends upon the RFP, and communications at that point are restricted. Individual communications, now if there's a public meeting, that's a different story, but individual communications are restricted and must be directed to the procurement officer, the procurement contact. In this particular case, that would be me. That cone of silence remains in effect until the conclusion of the protest period. So if 10 days goes by and there's no protest, that ends the protest period, and communications once again can be conducted, individual communications. But if there is a protest, the cone of silence remains in effect until the protest is resolved. So I will issue a determination, and at that point, then the cone of silence is lifted and there can be individual communications. So the code of conduct and confidentiality, the code of conduct, here you can see what respondents are going to be responsible for. You know, and all of these are called out in the RFP. They're going to be reminded that they're not to attempt communications with anyone other than the procurement contact during the RFP process as well. And then confidentiality, anyone who's evaluating will be required to sign a confidentiality form. Anyone who's not evaluating but who may have a need to know what's going on, we'll have them sign a confidentiality agreement prior to the discussion. For more than anything else, it's just to remind them that confidentiality still is in effect. It's a privileged conversation. So for conflict of interest, there's going to be a relatively straightforward form that all of the evaluators, anyone who any stakeholder who is influencing the outcome of the recommendation of award, so evaluators, if you will, anyone who's developing specifications, they'll complete this conflict of interest form and ask a series of questions. And it's not only financial interest, it addresses personal relationships. So maybe a staff member might have, or an evaluator might have a relative that works for one of the potential respondents. That's all vetted out. And if there's any affirmative answers that may suggest or indicate that there is a conflict, that will typically be referred to the attorney's office, city attorney's office, and they'll go ahead and rule on it as to whether or not it's something we should be concerned about. So if there are allegations of conflict or interest or misconduct, the RFP will stipulate the process. They don't have to wait till the end. If there's a concern about a perceived conflict or a real conflict, they're encouraged to bring it to me. If they're concerned about me, they can go directly to the attorney's office with a concern. Deanna, we're going to wrap it up.
Okay,
so we have two recommendations this evening. One is that you approve the procurement strategy, including the schedule for the Convention Center and Convention Visitors Bureau, as well as that you approve the procurement process integrity guidelines, as well as the conflict of interest guidelines for this procurement only.
Okay, are there questions or comments on this? Councilmember O'Neill.
Just want to say thank you. I think this is a really good process, and it's, you know, kind of more in keeping with some of what I was experienced dealing with in my experience, either, you know, preparing proposals for governmental entities or managing procurement processes on an enterprise supply chain. So I really think that this is getting us going in the right direction and making sure that we've got much better business and process controls in place. So I thank you, and I look forward to seeing the results of the process.
Anyone else? So I like the fact that we're moving forward with an RFP for an operator. It's critical that we have an operator who will manage the facility professionally and transparently. But I don't want us to lose sight of the strategic discussions we've had in the last year, particularly about the governance model. And I know we were going down the path and we were interrupted by all this other stuff. So we never I don't fully understand what models we're going to be looking at. And I know we're leaving it up to the market to come in and propose a model. But I just want to be prepared as a council member when we are faced with, you know, one or two or however many finalists that you come up with, that we really understand the model, the governance model, which is not addressed in the RFP. It's not. It's just more. It's more the, you know, the process. So I'm wondering, while this is all happening, if we can get a plan on how we're going to look at whatever governance models that are going to be available that we may be faced with, so that we can make sure that we're going in the direction that we feel comfortable with after understanding what those models are. And then I also want to make sure we have some really big stakeholders in that area, including related, the 49ers, Cedar Fair, the TID, you know, all the big players out there. I want to make sure that they can also give us some input on models and what their experience is. So I'm wondering if we could do it concurrently, this great process, but also just a little better understanding of what we may be facing based upon the industry standards now on how the different methods of governing, that facility. So when the time comes, we'll be prepared to really truly understand, because I don't think I truly understand the different models that we may be looking at.
What we can do is, as part of the procurement process, is bring back a study session that just talks about the issues of models and whether there's a city subsidy involved or whether there's a market solution, so that what we did in this procurement strategy is we've been silent on it because we want the market to respond.
I understand
and to be
that.
creative and to generate a proposal that the city can consider. Now, they may assume a city subsidy based on their own review of the history of the city and bake that into their proposal, and we'll evaluate that. But we didn't want to make that assumption, as well as allow for the market to be as creative and partnered as possible. What we are learning is that with respect to national agencies out there, there is probably about a handful that will likely propose and that exist. And there also is the existence of what I'll call boutique type of operators that really focus on a smaller market. And so we'll certainly, through our BidSync tool, target as many as possible, as well as tourism professional national organizations, so that we have the maximum exposure for this procurement. But we will bring back, as we continue to go forward in the procurement, the conversation through study session of governance and what things and areas of focus the council should be in tuned with, or provide us with input as we begin to narrow down the selection process and also the contract structure.
And what we think our stakeholders might want us to be in tune with as well, because I think this is just as critical as the operations of the convention center, that we understand and know what our community wants and our business community wants as well, moving forward. So thank you very much. So I don't see any other. Vice Mayor Watanabe.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank you for just outlining the whole process for us and walking us through it. It's definitely very detailed, but what I liked that you included in the procurement objectives is just the fact of enforcing the worker retention ordinance. I know that's something that we just passed in the city in the last year, so I'm glad that we're able to put it to work, and because I know there are some employees that are concerned about that. So I'm glad that that's been included.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the public that have some comments? Do we have any? I don't see any cards. Would anyone like to speak on this? Okay, is there a motion for staff recommendation? Is that staff recommendation? Motion and a second. Any discussion on that?
Both numbers.
Right. 1 and 2.
There you go.
And does that include the, I don't know, do you need that as part of the motion, that we do the study session for the governance models with the outreach to the business community and stakeholder? You have that already. Okay. All right, so there's motion and second. Please register your vote. Please register, everyone. Kathy? Logged out. It's not over yet, Kathy. Okay, and that passes unanimously. Thank you. Now we have reports of members and special committees. Anyone wanting to speak? Councilmember O'Neill?
Yes. I'm still, the next meeting, I'll make my report about what happened at the League of California Cities, but I did want to say a little bit about, I mentioned before, and I think members of the public that may be watching, with all the questions that we get about things like pavement conditions, litter, graffiti, and all that, VTA has just completed the draft of their annual Transportation Systems Monitoring Program, or GSMP, and it was presented or gone through last week at the VTA board meeting, and it is on the VTA website, and if you can't find it, send an email to mayor and council at Santa Clara City, and I'll get you the link. But it does have lots of interesting information, and one thing that people in Santa Clara may be interested in, we are making progress in a number of areas. Sometimes it's hard to believe. And it's because we've been investing money each on a city basis and with the increased money that we've been paying on the gas tax. And so we had a countywide goal of, where everyone's trying to get up to 75 on the pavement condition index. And the county is now at 70. It's been going up the last couple of years. And Santa Clara, according to MTC, is now at 74. So like I said, with the goal being 75, so we are making improvements. When you see, continually now you're seeing streets that are being improved on. So that's a good sign. And one of the things that, and I called this into question at the meeting last week, the numbers seem to indicate, oh, we're doing so much better job with litter and graffiti. And they talk about, it is stunning how much cubic yards of litter and trash and garbage are being removed. They just had like the highways. I said, that doesn't even take into account everything else. And, what we're not doing a good job of is really looking at what's really the source of that, and we all have to be better about not throwing stuff out of car windows and fast food containers and all that, but we need to look at also folks that are homeless and are camping out, and that's where a lot of mess is coming from. But and also the graffiti. I'm just continually amazed at where I see graffiti. Like, what do people do? But that report also goes into and talks about things like signal lights and ramp meters, and they're adding more and more measures. So I know we have a lot of wonky people out there who like that kind of stuff. So Google VTA, Transportation Systems Monitoring Program, TSMP, and you might find it very interesting to see all the details that are there. And as was mentioned earlier today, I did attend with some of the legal staff from VTA at the appellate court down in downtown San Jose for the, Measure B was passed almost 2 years ago, and there's currently approximately $275 million that's being held in an escrow account. And so VTA had been successful in the original lawsuit, and so the plaintiff is still appealing. So we had the hearing today where our attorneys pled the case, and so I'm hopeful. And we have like up to 90 days, and hopefully then that $275 million will start being spent on more transportation.
All in Santa Clara.
Okay, I'll try.
Okay. It's up to you. Thank you, Councilmember O'Neill. Any other member would like to speak? Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have a request, and of the city manager, maybe this may be referred to over to the interim city clerk. There was a report on an online blog this morning, the Santa Clara News, that Robert Hall writes every day. And there was, he writes about how the Santa Clara Chamber of Commerce, PAC, did not file FPPC reports from April 2010 to October 2014. They didn't file the reports with the city. And so I was wanted to request if the city staff or by way of the city clerk could look into that and bring us back a report regarding that and any action that needs to be taken as a result. Thank you.
All right. Any other members? Okay, city manager report.
I am just, as already mentioned, this evening, Comic-Con is this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Central Park Library. Please come in your costumes, council members.
Okay.
Also, Safewise has released its annual 50 Safest Cities in California, and the city of Santa Clara ranked 31 for this year. And if you look at your TMAC, which is included in your packet, you'll see that we have 2 stadium authority meetings that are almost back to back, one on November 27th and one on December 11th. The agenda is fairly light for the 27th, and we noticed that there is a meeting scheduled during the week of Thanksgiving. I'd like to cancel that meeting for November 20th and move those items to November 27th so that we have a true holiday. So you'll see that change on the TMAC.
I don't think
we're going to cancel the 20th, And I'm proposing that we cancel the 20th. Those items move to the 27th, which is a light agenda. We'll hold it as a joint meeting as well as balance out on the December 11th agenda.
Consensus for that?
Yes.
You're going to eat turkey and rolls and mashed potatoes early in your Halloween costume.
Oh, is that it? Okay. Okay, so this leads us to our adjournment, and there's a different adjournment time than was originally posted. So the City Council will adjourn to 4:30 p.m. on October 16th, 2018, which is next Tuesday. But I'm sorry to say that we are going to be adjourning in the memory of Evelyn Carmichael, a longtime Santa Clara resident. Evelyn was born on May 15, 1926, in Crow's Landing, California. She and her siblings were raised on an almond orchard in Newman, California. While working at Castle Air Force Base in 1950, she met her husband, Earl Carmichael, who was our beloved Parks and Recreation Director for many years and has a park named after him and his family. They were married for 48 years before his passing. Evelyn was an avid bridge player and a 68-year lifetime member of the Hacienda Group of the Santa Clara Women's Club. Evelyn's most fond memories were to spend time with her family and many fun trips to Hawaii, Sunday family dinners, and watching her great-grandchildren swim. Evelyn is survived by her daughters, Candy and Becky, her sons-in-laws, Chris and Greg, her sister, Lucille, her nephew, Chris Bancroft, many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Evelyn passed away at the age of 92 on October 2nd, 2018. So if I could please have a motion to adjourn in Evelyn's memory.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion second to adjourn.
Madam Mayor, may I make a clarification that the regular meeting on October 16th is to begin at 5 p.m. instead of 4:30?
Oh, did I have it wrong? Okay, sorry. All right, thank you for that clarification. Please register your vote to adjourn. And that passes unanimously, and the meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for coming.